It was less than 24 hours ago that Joseph Newgarden stormed to victory lane in the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500. And now iRacers get their final opportunity here in the IndyCar Open Series to prepare themselves for the race to come next weekend in the iRacing Indy 500. Delighted to have you along here for the coverage of a doubleheader of IndyCar Open action. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. I'm going to be walking through you all of what we're going to see here tonight. And boy, what a season these drivers have been in for, and what a way for us to close things off. Of course, the IndyCar paddock is making its way on over to the streets of the Motor City and to the new Detroit downtown circuit, but we race on the island of Belle Isle. It's plenty of fun, plenty of excitement, and we'll see how it's going to run for the drivers later on, with hopefully some electing to do double duty. I know there are plenty of drivers that have made their return journeys from the Indy 500 this past weekend, including myself, into the commentary booth, but out onto track, and so it's going to be quite fun for them to enjoy a double dose of Indy. Let's not forget, last Monday we had action of the 85 laps or so here on RaceSpotTV. We get to do it once again, as I said, in build-up, in anticipation to the qualifying grind and the race itself, the return of the iRacing Indy 500 to kick off the month of June. Let's quickly touch, though, on championship points, because, well, Adam Blocker alluded to a potential championship fight at the end of his interview at the end of last week. However, you look at that margin, Phil Kraus, Adam Blocker seemingly relatively separated still, and I'm not sure what the SOF is going to be, but Phil Kraus going to be entered here today. He has another chance, I should say, to try and establish himself as another Indy Open champion. Kevin Burrell and Rob Malechka tied and close in that fight for third and fourth, with Jacob Oster leaping in front of his Hamilton, Team i5G teammate Hamilton Akabuizi. So looking forward to seeing how that all shakes out. Now, as mentioned, both myself and a handful of drivers making their way from Indy this past weekend, where we had the rain delay. It was great to finally get the action underway, though, and to get all 200 laps of racing in, and with no red flags at the end either. That was maybe the most pleasant of surprises, given how feisty the racing was. Qualifying underway, though. Let's see who's going to be fast in what is not a 4-lap average, let's not forget, but instead is the one fastest lap that ends up counting. Jason Brophy has gone to 7th. I'm not expecting many drivers to really push their front foot forward in qualifying, though, because, again, the 4-lap runs, they all begin in about 2 hours' time. Drivers, though, locked and loaded for 80 laps of racing action. Should see us take around 50-odd minutes if we stay green, but as we saw this past weekend with cool track conditions, always expect it to be feisty out on track. And speaking of cool track conditions, fortunately, 48 degrees Celsius, relatively warm, all things considered. So what's that in Fahrenheit? 118 Fahrenheit, still a little bit cooler than maybe we would want to see for some nice spread out action. It is going to lead to plenty of intensity through the field. Let's head down trackside, though. 80 laps of racing. Let's see how they'll line up for the sprint that is ahead. And so it is going to be Marco Aurelio Brazil in that 10 factory sim racing car that leads us to the green from the front, and almost a tenth faster than Fernando Borda. AJ Musselman and Sylvain Moraine line up on row 2, with Jesper Orman in the Indy Alliance racing car alongside of Garrett Maines, who bears the #1 machine as the highest I-rated driver in the field. It's going to be interesting to see how eNASCAR's own gets along here in the world of the IndyCar with some of the toughest out on action. He, of course, drives for the FGR Accelerate team. Jason Brophy and Rob Peterson line up 7th and 8th, with Americ Blom and Olivia Hayward 9th and 10th, before you get down to Clint Holterman and Matt Taylor at the very tail end of those who qualify. Just Jaden Thurlow puts the time onto the board before you get to Rob Malechka, Hamilton Akabuizi, Hugo Olsen, Philip Kraus, Seb Alexander, and then Aaron McQuarrie, Luis Rodriguez, Chris Williams, Austin Bloom, Richard Vasquez, and then Michael Strickland, who is not at the very tail end of the grid, because we still got 2 more. Wilson Nadeau and Jason Julian rounding out the machines that are lined up and ready to rumble. They'll get a full formation lap as well behind the iRacing sedan pace car before we get locked and loaded and get ready to go. Seems as though all 26 machines are gridded up as well, which is a nice sight to see as across the yard of bricks they begin to rumble. Who are you cheering on? Let us know here on RaceSpotTV's Twitch or YouTube channel. It's going to be fun across these 80 laps to see how the drivers at the back slice their way to the front and how those who start up front now have to try and hold on to their track position. Let's not forget the cool track conditions the past Monday when we previously were here at the Speedway did see rather intense racing, rather intense restarts as well. One thing that we don't have to worry about, fortunately, is the threat of rain lurking potentially ahead. Remember, we've got some strong drivers starting outside of the back half. They've got some work to do. They'll have to do it safely. Those up front, still plenty of them starting in and amongst the action. Watch for Jesper Orman, Jason Brophy. How are they going to get along as they line up astern, rather in line with one another? Jesper Orman, of course, alongside of Garrett Maines, Jason Brophy, alongside of Rob Peterson. So off and away we get ready to go. Pace car will pull down and away. 80 laps of racing action lie ahead of us here in Speedway, Indiana, before we make the quick trip and the quick jaunt over to the Motor City, albeit to the island of Belle for what lies ahead and the season finale here on a Monday night in the IndyCar Open Series. Pace car off and away. Say goodbye to Benny, the pace car driver. Say hello to Green Flag Racing and full throttle action at Speedway, Indiana. It's a visceral thrill hearing the cars fly by and into turn 3, diving for the race lead. Ajo Musselman has gone from third to first. He'll cycle out of turn 4. Jesper Orman on the outside in that Indy Alliance racing car, getting very, very wide and squirrely. But he'll hold on, he'll slide back into line and up into 4th position. Leading across the yard of bricks. First time by, though, it is the Muscleman that holds on. Side by side, first time you look back, it's Hugo Olsen. Those are already up 3 positions. As big block, Garrett Maines slides up in front of Sylvain Moraine. He's got some dirty air to deal with. Jason Brophy now contends with it as well. Frenetic stuff on these restarts with the Firestone tires still giving the most amount of grip that they will. Olivia Hayward in the Prismatic Motorsports machine directly in front of Jaden Thurlow and Matt Taylor, who squabble side by side. Behind Olsen, Carbuisi, Krause and Alexander. Some of those drivers looking to try and work their way forward. Taylor goes to the inside and the MadWorks Motorsports machine runs out of steam with no helping hand. You can see that relatively content to sit for the time being further back in line. Up high goes the Swede Hugo Olsen. Here for a second there that Phil Krause was trying to get every ounce of the engine he could, but not much fuel saving going on. Definitely something that we saw plenty of yesterday during the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500. If a fast lap is going on 220 or so in race trim, we saw laps down at 205 for your race leaders. It was bizarre. That of course being 205 miles an hour, the way that speed traditionally does get referred to around the Speedway. Look at them snake back and forth. You can always tell how aggressive they want to be by how close to that white line they'll get. Behind Hugo Olsen, who's now up to 11th. Amarek Blom sees, Hamilton and Carbuisi up the outside of that was Jaden Thurlow, I believe. Well, that was a big, mighty save as well. And a reminder that sometimes you do have to work very hard. So Rob Peterson now sits in 8th, almost 1 second off the back of Sylvain Morin. That's a big deficit and one that you will want to try and close up if you can. See how long it takes potentially, though, for the gap to start to close. Jaden Thurlow, that one slight slip-up meant that he went all the way from, what was it, almost 11th down to 17th. So shows how crucial momentum can be here at the Speedway. And right on board, and we'll take a look. It's, of course, the replay. Watch the hands, watch the hands. It's not much, but look how much it costs him. Taylor, first around the outside. Then there goes the 5 of Hugo Olsen. As bit by bit they work their way on through. There's another look just at the rear end, stepping out. So visceral sometimes, that reaction. Lap 6 of 80. About to come to a close. Marco Brazil leads up front. We know he likes to take the downforce off his car. What can he do with it? Leaning up front, you think that's exactly where he wants to be. So far, Hugo Olsen, one of the biggest movers, 5 positions up. Wilson Nadeau, 4, respectively, for the Powerslide Motorsports duo. But their teammate, who is still in the... sorry, excuse me. If you can't tell, my voice has gone a little bit from shouting like mad at the end of that 500. What a finish as well. Around the outside for Joseph Newgarden through turn 3. I mean, as Scott McLaughlin did quite aptly put it, I mean, they were big. Break out the bleep button to make sure I don't get thrown off the air here on RaceSpotTV. Already seeing the lap times fall off. Remember, fastest lap times around here in the low 41s, especially for those that can take advantage with the tow. Some cases down to 41.7. Work on the tools, ARB and weight jacker. What can you do to hold on to your car? Watch with MadWorks' Matt Taylor. As off of the final corner, they roar towards the yard of bricks. And you could hear them, apparently, on qualifying weekend when they run over the yard of bricks. There is a very distinct note that rings from the engine. Of course, as you would assume. Which is very, very cool to see. And here, I guess, as well. Rob Peterson. Already seen Hugo Olsen slice past up to 8th. Now what does Taylor do? Sets it up out of 3. Looks up the inside. Door gets closed. Peterson holds on. Slow off of the corner, though. More contact made. And Olivia Hayward, the one that gets caught up in it. Caution not out just yet, though, because it's down on pit entry. Oh, my word. It finally flies. Peterson still out there, and surely with a broken left rear suspension. But we slow it down for the first time today. So Matt Taylor, Olivia Hayward, likely the major victims there. And we'll take a look at what happened as we slow it down, and not sure if we will see any drivers elect to rumble down on toward the safety, relative safety it would be, off pit lane. Remember, saw plenty of speeding penalties this past weekend, something that drivers across the board will be very much concerned about heading into the week ahead. So Taylor up the inside. Now a look from up above will tell us if he was truly alongside. But there you can see slam, bash slam into the wall as well. Here we go. This will tell us more. I mean, his front wing is quote-unquote there. Olivia Hayward just absolutely nowhere to go. And on board with Hayward, who's trying to shuffle down to the inside. Unfortunately not to be. She required the tow. Matt Taylor has entered pit lane as of his own accord, as far as I can tell. Christopher Demerit jumps into chat to say, oh man, I missed the race. And probably he can blame me for that. Had to wake up slightly early to take a detour on his way to back home to drop me and Christian Steele off at the airport so we could fly back over to the bay. As well, here we come down to pit lane, 10 laps in, and only a handful not pitting. Marco Brazil almost run into by AJ Musselman. It's Sylvain Moran and Americ Blom that elect to stay out there. But my oh my, busy pit lane. Who wins the race off and away? Remember, Scott McLaughlin had a clutch issue at the very end of the day. But his pit stall would have given him the best launch. Now, one driver hasn't been able to get into their stall very effectively. They will be off last, but it is going to be a 3-wide race. Oh, my word. I am not quite sure who won that race. Timing indicates Jason Brophy 3 wide behind as well between Rodriguez, Nato, and Malechka. But there goes the private label Team Hype machine that now will be in front of both AJ Musselman, Marco Brazil, and Fernando Borda. A couple of drivers that went off sequence this past weekend as well. But they ended up getting back onto the same strategy, courtesy of the timing of the cautions effectively. Everyone needing to come down onto pit lane. Who was it that really benefited most? I guess Stingray Rob would have been the one. Led the third most laps, was it? I mean, you've got to say he prayed for it. And it happened. I mean, credit to him as well, because he was running a smart race. And when you're there at the track, it's interesting how you watch the race as opposed to on TV, because you only see them right through the same handful of corners. So you're really watching the body language of the car, and you learn a lot. Kyle Larson, for example, as behind Nato, Malechka, and Holterman back into pit lane to top off and fuel, along with Jason Julian. Kyle Larson was learning quickly. He was really picking up, and, I know the speeding penalty happened, but that's a learning as well, Scott Dixon, if not for the speeding penalty, what was it, in 22, 23, one of the two? He was almost on for the win there. It happens to the best, as proved this past weekend. So it was Santino Ferrucci as well, as much as it hurts me sometimes to admit it. Boy, can he wheel it around Indy. Some of the moves he made around the outside, oh, incredible. And because I was sat through turns 1 and 2, we saw all the crashes for the most part. We saw most of the interesting passes, with the exception of down at turn 3 for the lead. Yeah, it was interesting. Who else stood out? Well, Colton Herta stood out until he didn't. Now, in 2022, his car for the race, remember, he crashed on carb day, had to go to a backup car. Every lap he was coming around the speedway, it looked like it was trying to go around and kill him. This time he looked like he had an absolute monster of a car. Just one small mistake. Not sure if he can get back up on top. We're about to find out, though, how we'll go racing with 13 done. Plenty of laps still left to go, and half check up there. We know these restarts will be feisty. Can the two up front yet to come down pit lane hold on? Let's find out. Here we go. It's behind where they're being a little bit more clumsy, if anything, if we're being honest. It seems okay, as off and away they run. Of course, they're going to swap around up front, and we're not going to get too excited about it, if we're being honest, but it's just one of those things where they will fight, especially in these cool conditions. As mentioned earlier, 47 degrees Celsius, it works out around 119 Fahrenheit, and mostly cloudy conditions. It does mean for a lot more pack racing than maybe some would expect, and kind of what we saw this past weekend as well. Garrett Main slid in front of Fernando Borda, checked up, and here comes the run. Phil Kraus. Jesper Ullman in the mix as well. The driver's electing just to be smart, as as they have a long, long way to go. So as your leaders slice and dice up front, once again, left side of the screen, pop up those positions moved. Remember, Kraus, Alexander, and Olsen, 9th, 10th, 11th in that pack, electing not to qualify, starting to work their way forward. Sylvain Morin and Aymeric Blom choosing not to pit in our sole caution of the race so far. They'll fight up front with tires that seemingly won't take too much torture and punishment. But meanwhile, Jesper Orman looks up the inside of Fernando Borda, started on the outside of the front row. Indy Alliance racing car slides up in front, gets the move done nice and easily. Watch Phil Kraus though, arcs off the corner. Trying to get the run, trying to get the momentum. Checked up a little bit. Might even allow Hugo Olsen to spring a surprise, but single file they remain. Christopher Demerit says Pato is an absolute wheelman. Yes, Pato was also wheeling it. Oh. It's not often that you see an IndyCar get sideways at the speedway and correct itself. It's a remarkable sight, and Pato did it not once, not twice, but it seems as though he used up all of his 9 lives. Ooh, behind, bit of a wiggle. That would have been Marco Brazil just in front of Jesper Orman. And you could tell that Pato had a good car once again. But he said it best. The Speedway owes him nothing. It owes none of us anything. And it will make that one, well, the first win, hopefully not the one win. The wrong way to say it. It would, it's going to make it that much more sweet. And he did wake up this morning and put a tweet out that I think showed that, you know, he's going to be back next year with hopefully a vengeance. Akabuizi now behind Alexander. What are they all going to do as Hugo Olsen feeds that dirty air to Fernando Borda. There goes Alexander trying to make the move happen in the orange, white, and slightly yellow machine. Not able to slide in front. Still very long to go in this race, though, and hopefully a green flag pit stop cycle. Wash the hands. So important to be smooth here at Indy, especially in dirty air. A bit of understeer. Washes up the track. And then has to go up high. Gets his momentum back under him. Interesting to note where he's shifting as well. Peak power range, of course, between 11.5 and 12 in this car. Maybe just a bit of fuel saving coming into mind here. And not wanting to leave himself compromised later on in this race. Oh, that was someone into the wall behind. Now, who was that? Oh, Rob Malechka's been tangled up, and oh, it's a hard one for him. Chris Williams as well. Those might be the two victims, unfortunately, as everyone else now going to get caught back up behind the pace car. Rob Malechka enjoyed his Indy weekend. He got to see 2 Chicago baseball games. Neither of them going particularly well, unfortunately, for the home base team. Then, of course, enjoyed a night with a couple of the i5G drivers watching some NBA playoff games. When I say enjoyed so much that he woke me up from my slumber when I was trying to get ready for the race itself. And then, boy, what a race that we had yesterday. And made the short trip back over. Let's see what happened potentially, though. It's off into turn 1. He's up high. Goes around the outside. And we'll have to ride on board there. It'll tell us a lot more. Now, is Malechka in... Is there a space that he goes for? I mean, he's sent to move. It's hard to tell if the 18 of Chris Williams just slides up that little bit too much and there's a bit of net code potentially between the two, but unfortunate situation nonetheless. So here we go. Will we see Sylvain Morin and Americ Blom down to pit lane. Remember, fuel window can take you as far as maybe 35-something laps, with a couple of cautions maybe interspersed, and maybe we'll see the field into pit lane. Let's find out. Well, Garrett Maines elects to join Moran and Blom. At least one other driver joining them, Aaron McQuarrie, alongside of, I think that was Clint Halterman, who of course topped off on the last cycle down pit lane. Everyone else coming back in for 4 Firestones and a top off in fuel. So here we go, off and away. Easy margin there for Jesper Orman, and I don't think changed tires, just came in maybe for a top off at fuel or something. It's only a 4.2 second pit stop for him. Second caution though of the day. That's a interesting number. Sets us up quite nicely, I think, for hopefully a green flag run potentially to come. Confirmation as well that for Jesper Orman there were no Firestones going onto the car. Instead it was just the top off of fuel that has been loaded back on in. 70 liters, about 18.3, 18.4 gallons, I think. Anyone who uses gallons should switch to liters though. Liters per lap is so much better than miles per gallon on road courses. A little on an oval maybe it's a little different. Anyway, remember we'll have coverage of the final round of the IndyCar Open Series at Detroit after this. That of course, we'll see hopefully a couple of these drivers pop on over. I know that Adam Blocker is going to be racing. He's of course probably a little bit tired after the weekend, working alongside of Agustin Canapino in the Juncos Hollinger Racing number 78 crew. Yeah, who else looked good is now just the question that I'm kind of running through my mind. I mean, Scott McLaughlin, you know, everyone knows that I love a good Scotty Mac race. He looked better than he's ever been. Let's be honest. Scotty has never necessarily been the best at the Speedway. Texas has been quite good for him, to be fair, but, you know, he's just not had the same speed as the other Penske machines in years prior. But, you know, the pole, you know, put him in great stead. Opportunity to lead from the front and have clean air. And if not for the clutch issue, you know, he would have been right there, I think, with Joseph in that final pit stop sequence. And who knows? Who knows indeed? All I know is now I have a pair of race-used Scott McLaughlin gloves. I'm not sure from which race, but I have to find a way to get him to sign it. So here we go, as I believe we're ready to go racing once again. Pace car is going to pull off and away. Pull the hard left, and we'll turn up the engines once again. 23 laps complete, so plenty of racing left here in the racing capital of the world. Jason Julian's off the track, and oh, there's a car careening into pit lane, but we stay green for the time being. 24 laps complete, and up front, 2 drivers yet to make their way down pit lane, continuing to go back and forth at the front. Let's go back in time, though, see what happened on the RaceSpotTV replay machine. It misses nothing. And so is Jason Julian hard up into the wall. He then slides up the track. All as Austin Bloom has his own moment completely separately. Let's take a look at what happened to him. Big contact behind as well. Humongous. He's up high. Already out of the groove through turn 4. Right side's hard into the wall. And then bam. Hits the wall hard. So now 26 drivers suddenly down to 20. We had high attrition during the 108th running of the Indianapolis 500. But this is a sprint race, let's not forget. Just 80 laps of racing. Fuel window around 34 or so potentially. So once we get around to the 45 lap mark or so, drivers will begin to start thinking about whether they can make it on that single stop after that. And by the way, when coverage of this race is complete, don't go anywhere. Not only will we have the Detroit coverage to come, that is going to begin at around 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. Probably a couple of minutes after that to give us some time to jump into the iRacing session, but we will have some coverage to bide you over. You'll be able to watch some of the runnings that we've had here at this 2020, was it 2 scan of the iRacing and Indianapolis collaboration that's seen us run on this new oval. The 2022 iRacing Indy 500, of course, was on the old scan. A lot has changed since then. Looking forward to seeing how the racing will develop as well. Jesper Orman trying to get up the inside of Aaron McQuarrie. Not able to make it happen. Remember, McQuarrie and Main stayed out on that last pit stop cycle with the caution flag. But it's the 2 up front that are the ones that are yet to pit at any point during this race. They fly past turn 3. There you can see stint lengths on the left-hand side of the screen. And of course, timing.RaceSpotTV, your home for all live timing needs over the course of the day. Roar down the main straight. Blom takes the point with aplomb. Jesper Orman almost slides up into the wall. Here comes the slide. Jason Brophy. Private label team hype zone. Alex not to go for it. It is going to be the move though for Orman. He slides up and outside will reign supreme potentially for Brophy. His teammate Kraus sits behind as well. They run off the corner. Brophy's got it done. Doesn't have the run though on McQuarrie. I'll have to knock on the door and see what he can do. That Indy Alliance racing car is working hard right now. Look how much of the track it's using. Through the gears they go. Lift early, lift less potentially. Long way round, this time for Phil Kraus. Can he build a house on the high side? Traditionally where we'd expect to see Christopher Demerit migrate up to, of course. Not just yet, though. Is Jesper Orman going to hold on? 6 officially goes the way of Kraus. Now Brophy attacks McQuarrie. He slides back into line. We ride off the rear end of Garrett Maines. Highest I-rated driver in the field. 9,550. See how important clean air is for these drivers. There goes Brophy trying to once again just shimmy up the inside. But the Indiana shuffle doesn't work for him just yet. Sylvain Moral's going to take over the race lead once more in towards the opening corner. 31 laps now officially complete. Those 2 up front. At some point in the next 5 or so laps, we'll be down to pit lane. Garrett Maines will be due in probably around 15 laps time or so. if my elementary mathematics works out correctly. But I guess quote me on that when we get there. Behind, Brophy is finally going to be able to get alongside of Macquarie. Slides up, slides out. Macquarie holds on. You can tell how important momentum is, and being able to hold on to momentum was something that you can't really teach to drivers outside of putting them in these racing scenarios. Hamilton Carboeasy, by the way, is trying to fight his way forward. Has just gotten in front of AJ Musselman. They were all the way down in what is 12th and 13th positions. Away they go once more. With a beautiful bunch of IndyCars roaring around, as I like to say, of course. Aeroscreen really does make them look like fighter jets. They look really, really cool, really badass. I wish we could see a bit more of this sort of open cockpit, but still protected, windshield sort of idea across of open wheel racing. I know it really was needed more for IndyCar because of concerns for using the halo on ovals, but just looks amazing. And that's for a chassis that wasn't designed for it. Imagine what happens when, eventually we get a new chassis, when we're all 50,000 years old, and it's got an aero screen that's designed for it. It could look really, really sleek. That's all I'm saying. Seb Alexander's looking up the inside of Marco Aurelio Brazil, who's now in dirty air and struggling a little bit. Still holding on, though, as a Carboeasy tries to look up the inside. Off to pit lane, though, comes Aymeric Blom as he plops it down onto the lane. Nice and easily done. T-Mine5G has just jumped into the chat. Hello, I did not know this was a thing. I assume that is the hyperstar on chat duties. Brendan, it was a very late decision. I was standing with Christian Steele waiting for our bags to show up. And it was taking a rather long time, and so I said, you know what? Should we do a double-header broadcast? And he said, sure. And so we know what Indy means. We're here, even though we were at Indy yesterday. Off and away down to pit lane. Sylvain Moral's going to give up the race lead. Jason Brophy, Phil Kraus, private label Team Hype on top. Jesper Orman trying to go around the outside of Aaron Macquarie. Needs to try and join the leaders potentially. There, for a moment, you saw Aymeric Blom, who's already up to speed and got a couple of corners on your race leaders. They'll be swapping up front back and forth without a shadow of a doubt. Where will things go from here? It was also, by the way, a first for me this weekend, watching weather radar and trying to figure out if there's going to be a tornado or not. There goes Garrett Maines along the inside, hugging the white line. Takes over the points. Now, Phil Kraus going to have to try and slide his way back forward. Or will fuel saving come to mind? 3 wide as private label Team Hype slide up the inside. 38 laps complete at the yard of bricks this time by. Oh, Christopher Demerit saying that he had to watch a bit more Tornado Watch earlier today. That does not fill me with confidence. Here we go once more. It's building up in intensity. Garrett Maines will get pinched. He'll still slide in front of Brophy. Jesper Orman's joined the fight as well. Nyum. What a wonderful sound. We need Nyum guy on our broadcast moving forward. Brophy will get back up the inside, and I'll stop getting so excited about 3 wide if they're going to keep doing this. I thought this would be once or twice. We'd get wise, but oh no. Now we just hope we don't lose our heads. Hugo Olsen's probably watching this going, huh? What are you all doing up there? They continue just to fight. I mean, this is building up. There's no question about it. At some point, it will bubble over. Jesper Orman stalls out, but now gets a helping hand from Brophy. A little bit too late, though, as Brophy takes over the lead. That Indy Alliance racing car, remember, it was sliding up, using a lot of the track earlier. I wonder if he's really maximized his weight jacker. Kudos to Callum Ilott, by the way. It was rather disconcerting to see him come down to pit lane before the start of the race, but when they announced it was a weight jacker issue, I think plenty of people kind of immediately understood why. And apparently he had to run the race at full maximum weight jacker. I can't quite believe that he did that. That is incredible. Look at the speed from Phil Krause from third to first. 40 laps complete. Halfway through this race, here we go. These drivers not going to hang around any longer, it seems. Maines is due down to pit lane alongside Macquarie and Holterman in probably around 5 laps' time. Does Hugo Olsen know that? Is that why he's fighting up the inside of Aaron Macquarie? Look at the way they just build the speed. It's scary at times how quickly you can be swallowed up by the pack. Oh, camera getting absolutely clobbered there, and look at those conditions as well. We're down to 105 degrees track temperature. Doesn't get much cooler than this. The roar of the engines rumble around the grandstands. Still with 20 cars out there, Austin Bloom, Jason Julian, Chris Williams, alongside Robert Malechka, Olivia Haywood, and Matt Taylor, are 6 retirees so far today. The rest just watching and lurking behind potentially. Wilson Nadeau's gone from 25th up to 16th so far. AJ Musselman started, of course, up inside of the top 4, but he's down to 11th now. So many drivers still with some work to do. And we'll find out what work we've got to do in terms of qualifying setup shortly as well. First qualifying session for the iRacing Indy 500 opens up in around an hour or so's time. As we'll look for a moment as though one of the cars very, very close to brushing up against the wall. As we ride in set with Hamilton and Carboeasy. Team I5G looking strong in many ways with the addition of a Carboeasy. But it's the fact that Jacob Oster, Christian Steele, and potentially the fact that Alexis Newsom will be part of the fight for the 2024 Indy 500 here on iRacing. They went 3 wide on the final lap. At the end of 2022, could we see some fun? We're hoping so. There goes Hamilton and Carboeasy trying to pass on Marco Brazil. Hasn't been able to get it done just yet as you ride on board with him. And still see that he's tight down to the inside, doing as best as he can. And now eventually has the move done. Just takes a bit longer sometimes than you'd expect. Have to be patient. Comment in the chat. Your accent reminds me of a certain bald ex-kickboxer influencer. Now, I've been compared to Cal Freezy before. Is this who you're referring to? Because I'll be honest, I don't know much about Cal Freezy other than he plays FIFA or something on YouTube. If he's a kickboxer as well, as the iRacing IndyCar community can attest to, I do like myself some combat sports, but I did jiu-jitsu for a little bit. Didn't go very well for me. Yeah, broken orbital bone. Kind of put my enthusiasm for that to the side. So left side, watch the stint count for Mains, Macquarie, Holterman. They're at 35 laps. When are they going to come down to pit lane? Now they do have fuel maps to make use of. And there's some clever things that you can do with fuel maps, let's not forget. If you want to try and really optimize. Map 5 is the caution map. Or rather, no. Map 8 is the caution map, isn't it? It's map 5, that's the one that's the fuel map with the most lean conditions, aka it sips the most fuel. But, yeah. I'm trying to, as you can tell, not very good with discussing fuel saving. It's why I got hit at the end of a 500-mile race here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway by Adrian Fernandez, and I didn't get to cross the line. Wow, apparently I really do sound like Cal Freezy. I'm going to have to go look this guy up now. As Phil Krause and Jason Brophy continue to battle at the front, there goes Hugo Olsen finally around the outside of Aaron Macquarie. He's been plodding, he's been lurking, and finally slides his way on through. The Swede carves his way forward. Of course, the two-time defending winner of the Open Wheels 500-mile race. So Macquarie, I think now, probably going to be looking down low. It's, in fact, Clint Holterman that comes in first. AJ Musselman has also come down pit lane, I'm assuming, for contact. I'm not quite sure why else he has come down onto pit lane, if I'm being completely honest with you. Maybe he's just trying to see what he can do in picking up the other drivers that will tow here. Work together, swap back and forth. We'll find out. This time by, will Mains make the trip to the left-hand side? Remember, got to make sure that you don't speed on pit entry. Looking and backing up. Yeah, indeed. To the left side of the white line and down through the gears. For a driver that is used to no pit speed limiter, that was about as perfect as you'd expect. .30 laps to go. We are within the window. Some would say some might put themselves closer to the danger zone than others, but I think Aaron Macquarie, Garrett Mains, and the rest of those drivers should be all good. We'll find out now. Mains, of course, going to be the first one to be off and away. Yeah, he's already powering out through the... And look, this is what you can do on iRacing. Garrett Mains knows it. Sweeps out wide. Doesn't have to stay below the white line. Very, very heads up there. And look at how much of a gap he's got. Macquarie, though. Oh, Macquarie might get swarmed. Fortunately, that's the pack with Sylvain Morin and company, but still, this might get feisty with the race leaders directly behind. Across the yard of bricks, look at Garrett Mains' lead. Side by side they go. And traffic, of course, with fresh tires will have confidence and grip. But the drivers that have been staying out there, well, their cars will be rocket ships in straight lines, maybe because of the low fuel load, and they'll have the tow from behind. There goes Hugo Olsen trying to look up the inside of Jesper Orman, but that, of course, is for a podium spot. Real question is, what is the speed that we're going to see from Macquarie and from Blom? Jason Brophy's seen enough. He's down to pit lane. He bails. Here we go. 3 wide. They survive. Americ Blom takes the lead of this little group. Garrett Mains now 4 seconds clear. Went a tenth quicker than Blom. 3/10 quicker than Macquarie last time by. No wonder Brophy bailed. Even Phil Krause was about 3/10 slower that last lap by. Jesper Orman passed now by Hamilton Akabueezy. Team I5G's own, making his way on forward. Who else comes to the box? Brazil, Rodriguez, and Vasquez came in last time by. Kraus the only one to pit this time by. So new race leader Hugo Olsen here at the Speedway. Where will the rest come out? Well, Jason Brophy feeds out in front of them all. 1.6 clear of Garrett Maines, albeit just within drafting range. Marco Brazil dropped directly into the pack, though. Oh, this is going to be tight. Almost contact between Macquarie and Brazil. Big slide. Macquarie with a face full of dirty air up to the outside. Alexander now down to the pit lane. One by one, they're coming on in. Phil Kraus, though, as you'd expect, going to try and link up with his teammate, the private label team hype driver of Jason Brophy. And can they slingshot themselves clear of Garrett Maines? Wilson Nadeau also now down to pit lane. It'll be Seb Alexander that is next, though, to exit off of the lane. It was a 9.1 second stop for him. There he is, and I think he is going to get absolutely swarmed, and, well, not even swarmed, going to get trounced on the merge. Garrett Maines just about clawing on to the lead pack. Look at how intense it is, though, at the top of your screen. Shocked that Olsen and Carboeasy have not yet boxed. Jesper Orman now down to the lane. Wilson Nadeau just in front of Marco Brazil, his countryman. Snaking back and forth they go. Moran around the outside. Can he make it stick? Yes, he can. Where do you even avert your attention? Well, now down to pit exit, where there goes Jesper Orman. And flying past will go Phil Kraus and Jason Brophy. Watch them on the outside. But Jesper Orman has a chance here. Can he latch on? So, Jesper Orman does cling on to the lead pack. Fernando Borda, excuse me. Now down to the pit stall itself. So where is he going to feed on out? That's a long stop. That's not a good stop. I think he's been caught for speeding. Oh, heartbreaking. Border's out of contention. Madness, though, of course, at the top of your screen. Still, as they fight for the lead pack. All as Jason Brophy, Phil Kraus, Garrett Maines, and Jesper Orman build a house up front. Oh! That changes the game! Rodriguez hard into the inside wall. Will the caution fly? 59 laps of 80 still underway. And Rodriguez on the flatbed with the green flag still in hand. Hugo Olsen, I think, recognized that as a danger point. He's down to the box now. Carboeasy follows. We've reached the end of the stint for them. We'll get a replay of what happened to Rodriguez in a few moments' time, but crucially, race off of pit lane. The 24 of Michael Strickland is directly in front of Jason Brophy on the bottom of your screen. Hugo Olsen off and away from pit exit. They'll lose out by some margin here potentially. Jason Brophy, Phil Kraus, and the rest of the lead four cycle through. The margin, I think, bigger than Olsen would have wanted. It just out within drafting range, though. 1.5 seconds, that's what Garrett Maines was able to claw back. Olsen, Carboeasy, just about hang on. So Seb Alexander finds himself in some no man's land. Everyone else in the second pack, which could still impact these leaders. We may not be done in terms of the action. Moran back down to pit lane. It was going to be close on him to the end for fuel, and so electing not to brave it out there on track any longer. Macquarie now leads that second grouping. If we're caution free, it's 6 at the front. 20 to go. Place your bets now. Which way would you even go? It's such a hard question to answer, I feel. I mean, private label team hype, they look good. Jesper Orman's quick, albeit maybe using a lot of the track. If Hugo Olsen and Carbuisi can get there, we know that I5G is fast. They had, what, 4 cars in contention last Monday? They're now down to within 7/10 to the back of Garrett Maines. We'll get really excited when we get down to 10 laps to go. Until then, we're not talking about fuel saving, but we are talking about drivers wanting to ride in line, bide their time. Hold patient, hold steady, and then blitz at the end. Do they have the patience, though? Garrett Maines is losing out. Hugo Olsen's going to try and slide on through. Race lead is going to see Jason Brophy try and fight forward as well. Fresh tire advantage, almost 10 full lap for Hugo Olsen over Garrett Maines. A little less pronounced to the 3 cars now left in front of him. Carbuisi can't afford to hang around as well. Olsen trying to pass his Swede counterpart. Jesper Orman on the outside. Dirty air for him from Jason Brophy. 2 laps, 2 passes so far. What more can Hugo Olsen do? Brophy will hold on for now by going for the race lead. The best defense, a good offense seemingly. It does open up Kraus to the attack from Olsen. And as a result, arcs the corner, goes up high, but you can see how much more grip Olsen has got. Here comes the Swede. 2-time Open Wheels 500 winner, and Phil Kraus going to pop out of line as well. 2 by 2, we run at the front. And again, remember, a double header of racing action. From the streets of Belle, we go racing in about an hour's time. With just 15 laps here left. Coverage to continue, though, until we get to the green flag in the season finale on a Monday night. Hugo Olsen still working, and working hard. The view from the pagoda tells you so much. Sylvain Morin's going to make his way past Garrett Maines. He's a lap down, but his fresh tires working a treat for him. 3 wide, and the 2-for-1 special somehow. Hugo Olsen charges his way forward to the race lead. That's the fresh tire confidence, the grip it gives you. Look how he snakes back and forth. A Carbuisi past Brophy. Back into line now. Phil Kraus is trying to pinch, it's all he can do. Arc the corner, get the momentum. What's your heart rate right now? Is it building? Is it intensifying? 3 wide with Orman around the outside. He'll get past Phil Kraus. You'll slide surely into second off of turn 2. Dialed up the weight jacker, dialed up the confidence. And dial up the bravery as well at this point. A Carbuisi refrains from taking it 3 abreast. Some sanity at the very least. And wow. Wow, oh wow, oh wow. Garrett Maines is back in the hunt as well with all this fighting. That second pack, a good 6-7 seconds adrift. They've caught Seb Alexander, or maybe he's fallen back into line. Love the rumble. They look like jet fighters. They sound like jet fighters. They feel like jet fighters. There goes a Carboeasy. Splits the difference. Up the middle. Hugo Olsen gives up the ground. Kraus going to try and hold the inside, but he'll get pinched. Now there is a 5-lap difference on tires between the two. Hugo Olsen, the one that we surely will think will be fighting with a Carboeasy with the freshest of tires. Oh, and Kraus got tight. Very, very tight. 12 to go. 11 at the yard of bricks. Roaring down to turn 3. Isn't IndyCar great? And some would say there's a window over Terre Haute. Out of turn 4. 11 laps to go. A Carboeasy and Olsen. Could it be a 2-horse fight? Or could the Royal Rumble still be on at the front? The Speedway owes no one anything. You've got to earn it. Olsen's done it twice in the open wheels 500-mile race. Carboeasy did it a couple of weeks ago in a big showdown race as well. And while Phil Kraus has yet to win an open wheels 500 and iRacing Indy 500, he's done about every other thing you can do under the sun in an IR18. Sun and the night lights, I would say, as well. For those that have followed his story and his journey through the Lionheart IndyCar Series. I wonder if Jason Brophy's now dropped into the clutches of Garrett Maines a little bit too far behind. Jesper Orman lifts off the throttle, tries to get the run. We've got 10 laps left to go. 25 miles left to settle it. A Carboeasy versus Olsen? Or does Kraus and Orman make themselves known? 9 to go at the line. Holterman slides past Peterson, that for 14th and 15th spot. Peterson's had an issue. He's down to pit lane. We'll turn our attention to the replay momentarily. Grab a look at a couple of different things as they continue just to fight at the front of the field. Now, we were very, very lucky in some ways that Luis Rodriguez's issue did not end up seeing a caution fly. That's the replay for the big smash into the wall. And we'll see once more, this time from the off-board shot. Look around the outside from Rob Peterson. Got a little bit close for comfort. And bang. And then many laps later, Peterson has clean air in front, but maybe too much weight jacker dialed in. Maybe some turbulent tailwind, crosswind off the corner as well. And slams into the wall all by himself. We're close to the point of no return. A caution flag would end the race. It's called the Indy 500 for a reason. The battle for first, very much the focus. Let's not forget, battle for 7th could end up being quite intense as well. Can see that with Seb Alexander still in front with Wilson Nadeau, Aaron McQuarrie, and then Marco Brazil slightly further behind than I think they'd enjoy at this point, but 7 to go. Olsen past the Carboeasy once more. So Powerslide Motorsports lead from Team i5G, and then private label Team Hype and Indy Alliance Racing. Each team will have strength in numbers this coming weekend. How will they be able to work together? These cool conditions very much benefit teams that have the strength in numbers as well. Let's not forget about that. Let's not, make any qualms about that. But anyway, back up the inside. Olsen leads. 6 to go. Wilson Nadeau in front of Seb Alexander. That second pack could end up seeing the caution fly, let's not forget. These top two continuing to extend their advantage. Seeming as though Phil Kraus has got nothing left in his toolbox to try and throw at these top two. 5-lap older tires might just be the difference maker. And so much like we were talking about with J New and with Pato fast hands, when do you make the move? Do you save it for the final lap of the race? Into turn 1, into turn 3? Too much to think about. Akabuizi back up the inside into that turn 3 corner at the northeast complex of the track. My leg is shaking. Christian Horner style right now. This will be good. We had a bit of a pack race to the end of last Monday's action. This is going to be very much more. Fought hard between just two. And two that have really, let's not forget, fought their way through the field. Olsen plus 15. Akabuizi plus 13. Make that 14 now. And both would be, you know, amongst the biggest movers with Phil Krause, if not for a certain Wilson Nadeau. And as much as I've been talking down Phil Krause's chances, he's still there with 3 to go. Do we have one last twist in the tail? Hopefully the grandstands will have an easier time departing and making the trip over to Detroit than people did leaving the Coke lot yesterday. We found a secret bridge, we crossed it, we conquered. We made our way out, some have returned to the speedway, and we're racing once more. Akabuizi is going to slice his way back on through though. We'll have 5 miles, 2 laps to go. So Akabuizi leads out of turn 4 here. I think you want to lead out of turn 4 on the final lap. But that is also because Olsen's setting up the run. Christopher Demerit says too soon. I apologize, Chris. It's fair to say that it wasn't Penske perfect when it came to getting out of the track yesterday for many of the fans that stuck around through all of the rain. We'll have 2.5 miles this time by, and finally we'll know who comes out on top. Heading into the most crucial week of the year. It's not fun. It's a grind. It's intense. Qualifying begins in an hour. This time on Friday, they'll know if they've made the 33. And they'll know if they need to have a race car to go fast. But one more lap here at the racing capital of the world in the iRacing IndyCar Open Series. Akabuizi leads from Olsen, Krause, and Norman. Brophy and Maines have dropped back, tires falling off of them in the closing stages. Down to the white line for Team I5G Zone. And these could be two looking for their first iRacing Indy 500 this weekend. Olsen slides on through, but is it too soon? It's a drag race coming to the line, and here comes Hamilton Akabuizi. Experience from Hugo Olsen. He tries to slide down below the pit entry line, but the drag race sees Hamilton Akabuizi by 10 thousandths of a second stealing away from the two-time Open Wheels 500 king. Was that a preview of what's to come? Team I5G will be pumped. It's another win for them here at the Speedway. Hugo Olsen did everything that he could. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget, 45 minutes from now, we're racing from the streets of Belle Isle. Behind, no real close finishes to speak of. It was only at the front. A long green flag run at the end meant that cold track conditions did not see a pack race play out, and instead we got a finish for a lifetime, but a finish that had to be earned. Akabuizi burns it down on the yard of bricks. Or will he? Is he waiting? Is he waiting? Come on, Hamilton. Get your practice in. You don't want to mess up on the big day. It's your one opportunity to get some practice done. We'll take a look at the race results, hoping to have a chat with the drivers as well before we catch up with some prior great racing here at the Speedway. 10 thousandths of a second split them at the end, but Akabueezy from Olsen and then Phil Kraus before Jesper Ullmann, Jason Brophy and Garrett Maines make up the rest of the top 6. Seb Alexander, Wilson Nato and Aaron McQuarrie, Marco Brazil make up the rest of the top 10. Let's not forget 14 positions gained respectively for the top 3, 17 for Wilson Nato. Good practice if they drop back on Saturday. Jaden Thurlow, AJ Musselman, and then Richard Vasquez and Clint Holterman rounding out the top 14 and all on the lead lap, while Sylvain Morin, Amaric Blom, Fernando Borda, and Michael Strickland are 1 lap down. Then those involved in incidents, Rob Peterson's 9 laps down, Luis Rodriguez 23 laps adrift before Austin Bloom, Jason Julian, Chris Williams, Rob Malechka, and then Olivia Hayward and Matt Taylor, the used car lot, and some unfortunately ending their days much earlier than they'd like. Well, what a finish. Time for me to stop talking for a little bit and to instead catch up with some of the drivers. And well, I'm sure some drivers trying still to get their heart rates cooled on down. Let's catch up with Hamilton Akabueezy. Hamilton, how are you feeling right now after a nail-biter of a finish? You and Hugo dicing out there in the closing stages. Did you think you had it done out of turn 4 on the drag race to the line?
I thought I had a really good shot at it, and it worked out because, like, draft is just so powerful here. It's but on the open setups with how trimmed out we are, yeah, it's hard to tell how the run will be coming to the line. But it worked out there, and that was great. I mean, me and Hugo just working together to really break away from everyone else was good. So yeah, we definitely took control, and it was just gonna be us two, and yeah, I got it, so take it.
You'll take it, and you'll take the confidence as well, I'm assuming, into qualifying, which is going to begin in about an hour's time. How are you feeling about the week that lies ahead, Hamilton? Because it's a grind, and I'm sure you're looking forward to it, but I'm sure it's also going to be a mental challenge, I'm sure, in many ways.
Oh yeah, I've still got a little catching up to do to get to, like, Treno and Michele, but I'm feeling pretty good about it going in. You know, first real time having a shot at top split and all that. So this will be, I mean, yeah, I'm sure I'll get into top split, of course, but I'm feeling pretty good about it going in. I feel like today I'm gonna try and hit like a 420.69 lap, but yeah, for the rest of the week, I think we're in a good spot.
Love to hear it. And I guess prediction from you. Where do you qualify? You say you'll make the Fast 33. Where are you going to qualify? Let's hear some confidence. Come on.
Goal is like, let me see, top 8. Like, yeah.
Top
first, 8? What would have been the first 3 rows if we had a 3-wide start.
Okay, fair enough. Okay,
yeah.
We'll see how it all goes. Best of luck for qualifying. And congratulations on this win, Hamilton. And yeah, can't wait to see how this week plays out.
Thank you.
And, well, I don't think we're going to get the chance to catch up with any of the other drivers, unfortunately. So just a reminder of what lies ahead. Of course, the great racing here in the iRacing Indy 500 this coming weekend. But for us here tonight on RaceSpotTV, the streets of Belle Isle beckon. 8 p.m. Eastern, we will be back with what is bound to be plenty of great racing. But before we get there, we got some time to kill, and we figured the best way to do so would be to go back in time and to wind the clock back to the first and last time we got to race on this version of the Speedway. We, of course, got a new version of the Speedway late 2022. Didn't get to use it for the 500 itself. We did end up, though, getting to use it for the Open Wheels 500-mile race. We will join them with, I think it's about 50 laps to go or so, and catch up with what lies ahead. They've just had a caution finish on up, but don't forget, return here 8 p.m. Eastern for what lies ahead on RaceSpotTV.
Alexander in 21st, they're thinking, what do I do? Do I come in as early as I can and extend that final stint, but potentially get a little bit of an undercut on the initial stop, or do I extend it for as long as possible, hope for a caution, and then make it a short run to the finish? That's the dilemma that everybody has right now.
I would just like to ask, by the way, to iRacing, please update the pylon, because I like the old school pylon, don't get me wrong, but the pylon at the IMS, the updated IMS in the real world, is a fully digital screen that they do some really cool things with, and iRacing could do some cool things with as well. Back and forth still. Blocker and Traino will continue to go. It's Hugo Olsen, though, in the best seat possible in terms of saving the fuel and working to the end of this race. We'll find out. 21 cars left on the lead lap, and they are split by 10 seconds. I don't want to say it's anyone's race, Lewis, but if you're on the lead lap, you've put yourself into the equation.
Well, that was a bit of a later move from Traino there, going down into one, but yeah, you're never satisfied, are you? Goodness. I wouldn't say it's anyone's race. I certainly would not at this point. I know obviously there's a few people that can rise to the order, but there are quite a few now, but I'd be thinking, no. To be perfectly honest, most drivers below 5th, I'm starting to really question right now. It's hard to move up the order, certainly more than, 5 or 6 spots. I know we've got a lot of time left to go. A lot will come down to that final pit window, because that's the only way that a few of those drivers further down might be able to throw their way back up into this race, is by making an earlier stop. But right now, I mean, to be perfectly honest, can you really see anyone outside of the top 4 doing it?
To be fair, the top 4 have been the most strong cars consistently through the race here, Joey.
I'm trying to think about some of those drivers below the top 5. Malechka, I still have my eye on him.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can't keep my eye off Phil Kraus. I don't know what he's going to be able to do. I don't know how he's going to be able to make up those 3 seconds to get within touching distance of the top 5. But I can't let him go. I can't get him out of my mind. And I feel like there's some sort of shenanigans that's going to happen here once the pit cycle comes around at about 15 lap time, because we've seen so many mistakes on pit entry, especially from drivers in the high pressure position of being in the lead of the race, but there are still so many variables that can still happen here.
David Porcelli rolls to pit lane, likely to drop a lap down as a result of that one, but the Satellite Racing driver, at least guaranteed as it sits right now, for top 22 finish with 44 laps to go. Bright yellow of Hugo Olsen sitting in a good spot to go back to back, but there are plenty of other drivers that want to rob him of that opportunity. Now, as Traino continues to go back and forth, there is a bit of a gap starting to build here, Lewis, back to Jesper Orman.
Yeah, that's why we're saying the top 4. Whilst Orman's starting to struggle, same with Coogan. Malechka, I do agree, by the way, with Jay. I think Malechka's had an incredible day. Whilst it says down 3 positions, we know that's not the real story. Up, not far off 30. That is the real story for Malechka, but I just don't think there's enough pace. And certainly with the gap growing between Demerit and Orman, it's a solid no. I will say one thing that's really changed the circuit recently. You can kind of tell it's a lot darker now. That's not because the sun's setting. That's because the partly cloudy's really got involved, and we've got a touch of cloud coverage, which has cooled the track temperature down a few degrees. Now, what that's going to do is very, very quickly, it's changed the balance of the car. Now, a lot of drivers are quite good at reacting very, very quickly. Some of the drivers, it takes them a couple laps to be like, oh, not quite there, not quite there. Oh, there we go. Now I've got the I've got that dialed in. Just takes a couple laps. Like I say, the track temperature can change very, very quickly, but that cloud coverage will roll in and roll out quite a few times before now and the end of the race.
And it drops 6 or 7 degrees quite quickly, and we always say you got to be proactive with your tools, not reactive, which I know I had the awful tendency of being quite reactive. On board with the...
touched them.
Sorry?
I should never touch them.
Oh, fair.
That smells bad.
On board with the fabulous mustache of Kevin Burrell, as we look behind him, you've got Bennett, Krause and Newsom, 3 of the stalwarts of this iRacing community, IndyCar community, and I think we should just take a second here, Joey, to appreciate the glorious facial hair on Kevin Burrell, who is, as you can see behind, getting ready for a move to Japan, where unfortunately racing will go on the back burner for the next, I guess, couple of years.
He's got a very nice view in the background, because he has the most aggressive driver in the top 13 right now, and Phil Kraus constantly attacking Henry Bennett, and that means that Henry's never really able to get to the back of Kevin Burrell and really do anything to fight with him, because Kevin's got a huge gap ahead of him. Well, not huge, it's about 1.5 seconds up to Brophy, but Burrell's essentially in clean air. He's almost in clean air. If it was just Bennett behind Burrell, I think Bennett might be able to attempt to go for a move, but because Bennett has Phil Kraus constantly attacking him in turn 2, in turn 4, places where you don't normally see overtakes get done, they're just slowing each other down.
don't want to call this race a procession, but this is just the current state of how racing works at Indianapolis, even in the real world. The one thing that we haven't seen today with this new configuration of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, at least just yet, Lewis, but is the Christopher Demerit line, where basically he says, you know what, I want to run all the way up against the wall. He's been content to just run down low and save fuel for 160 laps so far, basically.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens on the final stint. We're approaching it in about 9 laps' time. We'll see those final pit stops properly begin, and from that point on, I think you'll see people being a lot less patient. You're just waiting for your time to attack. You're waiting for the right time. You know, some that have actually looked after their tyres potentially a little bit more throughout this stint, they'll be closing in on the time that they want to attack, that they want to move forward. So we might see quite a few moves coming into this pit stop sequence, and then generally through the entire final stint, because for a lot of these drivers, it really is now or never if you want to be on top here at the Brickyard.
I think it's now or never now as well,
yeah,
because we're entering into the pit stop cycle where if you put yourself into a bad situation entering into pit lane, it's very hard for the pit cycle to save you. So you get your track position now, you make the time up now, and the fact that Phil Krause finds himself 7.5 seconds off your race leader, and knock on wood, we go caution free, you can only pull so much magic out of your hat, Joey, to be able to close that gap.
Yeah, eventually you just start kind of losing hope. I think he's probably still got a little bit of hope left in there, a little bit of hope left in the old brain. But once the pit cycle comes around, if we don't get a caution and you're like 8 seconds off the lead, eventually you just got to become complacent with your position. You don't really think you're going to be able to move forward at all anymore. And Krause, I think, is feeling the effects of his tire aggressiveness right now, because he's been attacking Henry Bennett since this stint started. He's been diving into the inside, like I said, in turn 2 and turn 4. Whenever he gets the run, it never works for him, though. He constantly has to back out of it. He can't get the run down any of the straights. And you can tell he's definitely struggling tire-wise because of that.
Belle is fast enough to frustrate both Bennett and Krause, who have setups that are capable of running at the front. It goes to illustrate just how fine the margins are as Krause sends it to the inside, but just does not have the grip to make it work. Moments away from that pit stop window opening, maybe 2 or 3 laps. If I had to go in, I don't want to come in before there are 32 laps left to go, Lewis.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I know obviously it's pushing it a little bit late, but certainly if I'm like Traino Blocker, I'm up there. I'm waiting for there to be 30 laps, so you really know that you're pretty safe and that you've got that fuel in the tank that you can attack. If not, you could be spending the first portion of that final stint in someone else's slipstream, sucking on their tailpipe, trying to basically save the fuel that you need to go on the attack later on. It's really like I said, it's really not an easy part of the race, but you need to get to about 30 to go. They've been switching quite consistently between the two of them. But I don't know about you, I was saying it earlier, for me, this is definitely a maximum of a 4-horse race. It's Traino, it's Blocker, Olsen is definitely there for the race victory, and Demerit is just hanging on. Below that, Orman, Coogan, Malechka, I think below that, genuinely, right now, unless they do something magical through that final pit stop, I'm thinking everyone else is going to start ticking themselves off. They're not going to be a part of this final showdown unless there is a caution. One caution to change the course of history in this race. Who knows?
And based on what we saw in the first half, it might not just be the one caution. Let's talk motivations, though, through the field. Brandon Traino, King of the Bricks, already has his spot in the iRacing history books, well and truly locked in. However, this month of May did not go the way that he wanted, searching for yet more history. He is here for redemption, and that includes making up for a mistake at the Open Wheels Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. Adam Blocker has been so close to a major Indy 500 win, but it has never been there. It has been just beyond his grasp. That is what he is looking for here today. Hugo Olsen, well, he wants to defend the throne that he inherited in 2020 with a statement victory, while Christopher Demerit has been the quiet car so far, but waiting in the wings with so much experience and a wealth of knowledge to fall back on. He will calculate his way to the very end. 4 drivers, full of motivation. And Joey, the reality is in this IndyCar community, there are always tensions inflamed between the major three teams.
And tensions might inflame as this Blocker-Traino battle right now, it's easy going right now. Blocker, when he peeks to the inside of Traino's not fighting it too hard. He can basically just let Adam go by because he knows they're just switching back and forth right now. They can afford to do that. But once we get into the later stages of this next run, when it gets to 10 laps to go, 5 laps to go, Traino and Blocker are not going to be quite as nice to each other. They're not going to be leaving as much room, and things are going to start getting a little bit more aggressive. And then if you're the likes of Hugo Olsen behind, you're probably going to be happy about that because that's more opportunity for them to check each other up. That's frankly more opportunity for them to take each other out and open the door. And that's when the real pressure cooker stuff starts.
I'm just glad we're not going 3 wide at the front of the field inside of the opening 15 laps like we did in May, because regardless of which side you came down on in that incident, Lewis, I think the line in the middle is it was just a shame that it happened that early and took out some major contenders.
Yeah, like I say, it was a pretty big and dramatic moment for Brandon Traino. And, you know, he wants to make amends for it. Like I say, whichever side of that battle you were on, outside that 3 wide, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't fun, and it kind of started that race in a not great way, removing a couple of the big contenders. We've not had, thankfully, anything major like that today. Everyone's been, to be honest, on pretty good behaviour. I know we've had a few sillier moments, we've had a few crazier moments, but most of what we've seen when it comes to the cautions, it's been single car incidents, been people pushing a little bit too hard. I'm okay with those. I am okay with it because it's kind of, I don't know the drivers.
It happens.
But like I say, those happen. We've not had, to be honest, aside from like a couple of little bits as Traino comes in, we've not had anything that's been crazy that I've pointed the finger at and been like, that is ridiculous, that is out of order. Everything's been pretty above board and on the books.
Yep, I 100% agree. And even though we've had more cautions than we've ever had in an Open Wheels 500, it still feels like a race where it's just everyone has been pushing so hard because of the return of this event. So Traino blinks, coming to 29 to go. Blocker, Olsen, Demerit will try and extend just that little bit further. But again, Joey, the limiting factor here isn't the amount of fuel that they're going to put on the cars. It's just going to be about how long it takes for the tire changers to get 4 fresh Firestone boots onto these Dallara IR18s. So hitting your marks is going to be crucial. Adam Blocker cannot afford another mistake on pit entry.
There is another heavy lockup again. He's got it slowed down. I don't think he'll get a speeding penalty for that, but that is another critical thing. That pit entry is, there's a critical couple of tenths in there. And with that lockup from Blocker, he might have over-slowed himself a little bit, and that might be 1 or 2 tenths that determines the difference between him getting out ahead of Traino or getting out behind him. Here is Traino coming through. He's warming up his tires. Every other driver looks like they're going to wait 1 more lap. Actually, some drivers at the back of the field, Marquez and Welker specifically, I wanted to mention them because they're in that window where if they pit, they're in danger of going a lap down here to race leader Hugo Olsen. So that's the risk that they have to take. It looks like they're going to stay out ahead of him, though. They won't go a lap down, and they won't get trapped if the caution comes out.
Traino will grab back the race lead. Olsen's in demerit, stays out 1 lap longer. Undercut definitely the way to go, just because the tires are giving up the ghost, and Traino shows the benefit of getting fresh boots onto the car. The margin between Blocker and Traino is over 1.3 seconds. He's blown himself clear of those behind.
Yeah, and it's at the point where the slipstream's certainly not going to be too much in effect. It might just be enough. The final coattails of that slipstream, it all kind of depends on where Olsen's going to come out in all of this. If he comes out again, as we've seen before, if it was a slow stop from Blocker and whatnot, if he comes out between, that is going to really help Blocker just get that final little push back up to the rear end of Traino. But right now, it's the Traino show.
It is going to, though, be one i5G/Apex car up against 2 Powerslide cars, unless Christopher Demerit is able to nail this execution of the perfect green flag pit stop, Joey. And maybe there has never been more pressure on Demerit's shoulder than this, because leaving Traino up against 2 teammates would be a bit of a one-sided fight, potentially.
It looks like Demerit's going to go around 1 more time, as is Malechka, as are a bunch of these drivers in the lead of the race. They are going to go until the very end of this fuel tank, until they can't go any further, because they are hoping for a caution to come out. They're hoping that they'll be able to put on fresher tires than everybody else who just pitted. There'll only be 2 or 3 laps fresher, so they won't be much help, but still, when you're in a position like that, you need to go for something alternate. Malechka does come in this lap, And all those drivers who were a lap down, by the way, I didn't expect Newsom and Belle and Akabuizi and Welker to go a lap down, but they have. So they're really hoping that this caution doesn't come out and they can get Demerit to come in to give them their lap back.
Demerit is on to lap 33. Malechka will hit his marks. Missed the initial race start. Had to start at the back after qualifying inside of the front 2 rows. He has managed to fight his way back into contention, but as he drops and rolls, releases himself from the limiter, it's just simply not going to be close enough. Already they blow themselves on pass, and Malechka's going to be lucky to even be within sniffing reach of Jesper Orman.
Just how it goes. Like I say, he's had a long day. I will say, Malechka's had a great day. Completely missing the race start, but still managing to get in the race, still managing to be a part of it, still managing to put on a great show for us. So thank you for that. But like I say, just way off the rear end of Orman. The rest of them coming into the pit lane. Traino and Blocker, though, very, very close. Olsen a part of it as well. It really is going to be a 3-car fight for the race lead.
And they're 3 wide into turn number 1. Traino has to concede. It's now power slide net 1 and 2. But where does Demerit cycle out in all of this? He's still trying to get up to speed on the access road. Power slide, grab control of the race with 24 laps to go, Joey.
I don't think Traino conceded there. I think he was forced there because he was desperately trying to stick to the inside. He made contact with Hugo Olsen, I think, in the middle of the track. And again, he's going to fade up. He has to lift out of it. The car gets very, very loose. Traino has been running in clean air for so long that I don't think he expected that level of aero wash there. And Hugo Olsen was very, very lucky that didn't end in complete disaster.
Brandon's dad says, quit counting the king of the bricks out, and we're not trying to count him out. We're just looking at the reality of the situation with 15 minutes to go and 2 teammates in control of this race with all the pit stops now in the books. The complexion of this race has shifted in the direction of Powerslide Motorsports, Lewis.
Yeah, certainly not counting Brandon Traino. We know his experience around here, and also I would quite like to be right twice in one day. So that's obviously my ego getting the better of me. But Brandon Traino is an incredible talent when it comes to racing around here. But you're absolutely right. He's got it stacked up against him a little bit. This is the 3 wide look once again, and like you say, just squeeze down a touch. And they both came through the Powerslide cars, Olsen and Blocker. Brilliant stuff. They now make it the 1-2, and Brandon Traino started thinking, like, right, how do I get past just one of you? Because that's the important bit, is that you're never going to clear. You're not going to clear both of them in one straight. But if you can get past one, if you can get between them, that's where you can start affecting something. So watch as soon as they switch, the more that happens, the more Traino is going to try and follow that switch through. He's trying to affect a pass in the middle of that switch, and he needs to.
Jesper Orman has cycled in front of Christopher Demerit, so Demerit tried whatever he was trying. It has just not cycled out in his way. You can see the separation to Malechka, though. If there's going to be a winner under green flag conditions, likely it will come from the top 3. But if there's any bit of shenanigans, Orman, Demerit are there to pick up the pieces. Again, it feels like deja vu back to 2020. Yes, Olsen's there. Blocker wasn't racing on that occasion. It was Costantini instead of Traino representing Apex Racing and i5G, but once again, it's 2 Powerslide cars up against 1 i5G machine, Joey, and any thought about how good the race cars have been over the course of the previous 180 laps go out the window now, because it is a totally different race.
And Blocker and Olsen right now, as teammates, they're not racing each other especially hard right now. They know there's only 20 laps to go. They know the track position matters, but they're thinking about Traino right now, and they're on defense mode. As if they can continue to switch spots here, if Olsen and Blocker can just trade the lead and not let Traino get in, that'll give them both the optimal chance to be able to fight for the win when we get to that critical moment of about 5 laps to go, and these moves are actually going to matter. But you can see Hugo's lifting out just a little bit. He's not fighting as hard as he could, because he's thinking about the long game. He's thinking about keeping himself alive for the win. And he knows he has to make a few sacrifices right now to be in it later.
Was that Traino off the wall, or was that just my eyes deceiving me?
I think it's your eyes deceiving you.
Yeah, I think it was okay.
Okay, I put the question out there because it has been a long morning, but Traino's car does not look like the same car that it was when he was part of the front 2 leapfrogging back and forth. Olsen had experience of that. Blocker had experience of that. How are the tires? Sorry, Lewis. How are the tires playing out right now? Because if Traino is just sitting back and thinking, I'll try with 10 to go, with 5 to go, maybe there's something he's got in mind. I don't see how it's going to happen, though, naturally, unless he forces the issue.
I mean, being the third car, you don't really want to be the third car, because as much as you're getting a double slipstream, when they're switching, when they're doing it perfectly, it can be frustrating. You can see at the moment, Brandon Traynor not showing really any of that frustration. It's pretty calm and stoic at the moment. I think in 18 laps time, if he remains in this position, it'll be slightly less calm and slightly less stoic. But like I say, you've got to accept it as it is. Right now, the race certainly isn't over. A little bit of pressure on the shoulders coming in from Demerit. But also, remember that these two, whilst they are teammates, they're probably teammates for about the next 15 laps. The moment that ends, it's every man for themselves. And trust me, that's where Traynor might get his opportunity.
It will be like being a mercenary / pirate at that point. Everyone will indeed be out for yourselves. We saw that with the 3 wide with i5G teammates back in May. I have no doubt it will be something similar. Like Lewis alluded to, Demerit has closed up and he has not brought Orman with him. So the Indy Alliance Racing number 3 in danger of being left in no man's land and maybe being dragged backwards towards Malechka, Coogan, Oster and Kinsella, who will battle for what is 6th through 9th positions. An exciting 16-lap shootout still left in front of us, Joey. Demerit may be the wild card. We haven't seen the Demerit line come into vogue so far. Has he been waiting to play it at the end?
I don't know if he'll be able to do the Vogue up there on the top and use it again on this new scan. There he goes. He peeks up to the outside to get into a little bit of clean air behind Traynor. Not quite running as high as we would expect him, though. He's still just rolling in the line here behind Traynor. Here's two drivers who are teammates in the back of or in the middle of the field, rather, right now. Phil Kraus, who didn't actually get a pit lane speeding penalty. It looked like it might be likely that he did, but he's fine. He got away with it. He's trying to tow his teammate Brophy ahead. They've got about 5 seconds up to Kinsella, but they're doing everything they can to bring it
Traynor
down.
had a big issue off of 2. Big issue off of 2.
I did hear Lewis going, ooh, and I knew it was attention drawing me somewhere. I just didn't know where. So now it is Power Slide 1 and 2. It's Demerit that inherits the mantle of the i5G representative. We'll grab a look at what happened, but Lewis, big drama then here at IMS.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of the best catches I have seen. Absolutely monster slide through 2. We'll see it here. I mean, just watch him. It starts sliding quite early, a little bit too low, brushing the curb. There it goes.
My day.
Just catches it. That is impressive.
How ironic that was a power slide.
Nice. Yeah, Lewis, you see there's a reason why I got Joey, because I wouldn't just get irritated with you, I'd get irritated at his puns as well. Traynor's tires likely screaming out. He's behind Orman. It's all on Demerit's shoulders as we wind closer and closer to 10 to go. We check in with Malechka, Coogan and Kinsella. And I'll just shout out here, Joey, the run for Shane Coogan, a true privateer. Qualified down in the field, has been having a slow but steady day and is on course for a top 10 finish in his debut in the Open Wheels 500.
Yeah, I remember I wasn't tuned in for the qualifying for too long. I was very, very busy, but I do remember seeing Shane Coogan's run, and he put it P21 in the field. That's still 21st. It's in the bottom third of the field, if my math is correct there, but that's still a great run for a privateer. Maybe one of the top privateers in the field in qualifying, and he has just driven his way forward very, very silently. We haven't said his name very much, but honestly, tonight, or this afternoon, that's probably a good thing that we haven't said your name very much, because that means you haven't gotten any trouble, and the number 6 is in P7.
Cloud cover's gotten heavier. At least it looks visually darker, even if the track temperature hasn't necessarily changed. Still hovering at around 51 degrees Celsius. So the gap between Demerit and Orman, 1.7. Orman and Traynor have not worked together to try and swap back and forth to close. So, like I said, the moments that Lewis brought our attention to Traynor's slide, it's all on Demerit's shoulders. And he's still running those same lines. Usually with Demerit, I'm so used to him, Lewis, going up high that it's just like, oh, he's gone down low, that's the surprise. It feels a very, very different atmosphere compared to what we saw in May.
Yeah, it's like I say, maybe he's going to start using it later on. Maybe he's content. Maybe he's the setup that they've got doesn't really feel that great, going higher than the standardised line around here at Indianapolis. All I know is that there is not very long left in this race. It really is the top three that are battling it out, Olsen, Blocker and Demerit. I think Allman and Traino a bit too far of it, 1.5 seconds back to Allman, and of course the 3/10 back to Traino. It's between these three, and there we go, going a little bit higher, just trying to build the speed up. It's normally through 2 where we see that outside line. You're trying to use it there, so you're punching into a much, or 2 and 4, where you're getting a much better run onto the straight. But right now, like I say, not using it, just in 1 and 3.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is our first experimentation and trying to understand this track as well. So, and what's changed, I think that's the big thing, right? Because, Joey, I'm sure a lot of these teams use the baselines that they had out of May coming into this event. I have no doubt as well that it is a very different setup to what they started with all those weeks ago.
It's different, and it's been adjusted over the course of the race as well. So if you're not completely perfect right now, if you're not completely satisfied with your car, well, you're kind of out of luck because you're running out of time here. There's only 10 laps to go. That was very, very close in turn 1 between Blocker and Olsen. We've reached that critical moment where you've got to stop being teammates. You got to start fighting each other for the win, and you could see that both of them are leaving each other a little bit less room. They're not backing out as much as they did initially because they want to get that track position, and they want to line themselves up to be in the optimal spot to be able to do that leapfrog on the last lap.
Remember that the tires for all 3 of these drivers will be at the end of the run by the time we get to that final lap of the race. Demerit will have a 4-lap advantage, though, compared to Blocker. So maybe that is something to factor in as well. But it's not shaping up as though he's got an opportunity. So let's focus in on 1 and 2, who have been going back and forth. Lewis coming to the white flag with 2.5 miles to go. Do you want to lead? Do you want to be in second?
This is the thing, it's not easy. Realistically, all I know is that around here you want to be leading off of 4, because everyone's like, oh, the big drag race line. If you nail 4, likely it is you're probably not going to be passed. Whoa, hello, that was a big moment. Was that Oster?
It was indeed.
That'll wake you up for the final 8 laps to go. But yeah, you want to be leading off of 4, because the drag race you should have the run to do it, which means you've really got to make the move into 3. But that move into 3, it's possible to block it and to not worry about it too much. Honestly, I don't know. I think I'd want to lead the final lap.
Oh, you want to lead at the line? Interesting.
Yeah.
Joey?
I don't want to lead at the line, but I don't necessarily want to be in second either, because that puts Demerit behind me. That gives him a chance to attack potentially. And also, you can never really guarantee that you'll be able to get the run that you need to actually make the move. So that's always the dilemma. That's why it's hard to fight for these things, because you think you want to be in second. You want to get that optimal line. You think that's the way to take the lead. But if one thing goes wrong and you can't take the lead, you're going to feel stupid if you didn't take it a lap earlier.
So my thoughts are that Olsen wants to lead at the line. And I say this based on Olsen's questions in our pre-race driver meeting, where he was very specific in that he wanted to understand the rules of moving and weaving to break toes. But with my relationship with Hugo being his teammate, I knew that he really meant what happens on those final laps if I'm fighting for the lead. He wanted to know how far he could go, what he could do, because he is willing to lay it on the line to grab not just the small prize money from the purse that is available for this event, but of course as well, there is, I think, the more significant prize to many of the drivers, Lewis, which is that custom engraved bottle of milk, which is waiting in my kitchen to be dispatched wherever in the world our winner may be.
Yeah, not a winner in the commentary booth then.
No, definitely not.
Like I say, it's the reason why I genuinely would want to lead on the line, because like I say, you can defend, you can do something about it, whereas when you're second and you're like, I have to make a move, I have to go around the outside or make a move to the inside going into turn 3 particularly, it's not an easy one. And the thing is, like I say, there is a right decision and a wrong decision, and right now if you're trying to force that decision, you're trying to force your hand and try and be in the right spot, the likelihood is it might blow up in your face, and so you've got to be careful with that. Demerit's starting to run that higher line a few more times, I've noticed now, coming into at least turn 3.
Setting up.
Yeah, I think maybe, like you say, building himself up. Maybe I wouldn't count Demerit out just yet.
I think more interestingly, though, what he's doing into one is backing out and popping out of the draft. I think he is just setting up for those final laps. He's got something in mind. That is without a shadow of a doubt. Under 4 to go now as we wind out of turn 2. There is a bit of traffic up the road. That is Evan Adams, who is on the leading lap for the time being. I think he will be just up the road enough to not play a factor and not to give any dirty air to the two teammates who continue to go back and forth as we wind now to 3 laps to go, Joey, to round out this month of November.
Evan's about 3 seconds up the road there. Hugo and Blocker are only about 4/10 a lap faster than Evan every lap around. So do you do the math? That means they're probably not going to catch him. There might be a little bit of dirty air come that last lap, but other than that, it's going to be 1v1, Blocker v Olsen v Demerit. Again, you see Demerit in turn 1 trying to go a little bit wide, trying to set something up down the back straight here. Unfortunately, he's just running into that dirty air wall. He's running into the dirty bubble. He's stuck about 3/10 behind both of these guys. But as they continue to get even more aggressive, as they continue to go side by side even more throughout the lap, Demerit's just waiting for the door to open.
We are past the point of no return. The next flag will end the race. And at this point, with 5 miles to go, is it between the two at the front of the field? This event that Tanner Watkins started back in 2019 is back in your lives. Tanner is watching somewhere on his honeymoon. We congratulate him on his marriage just last weekend. But 2 trips around IMS left with the victory and the glory on the line, Lewis.
Yeah, Hugo Olsen nearly into the barrier then, coming on the exit of 2. They are no longer teammates, ladies and gentlemen. They are battling between each other. Olsen takes over the race lead into 3. Demerit sat there waiting. Is his opportunity now? White flag's about to be waved. Who is going to be on top?
2.5 miles to go. 700 plus days later, Hugo Olsen is in contention once more, but it comes down to the next 4 corners. His teammate Adam Blocker will look to the inside, but the defending champion has it covered for now, Joey.
I wonder if that was a little bit too early of a move from Blocker. He's going to fall off the back here off of 2. He almost gets into the wall and has to completely check up. I don't think he's going to have enough time to bring this gap down into turn 3. I think going for that move into 1 was too early, and that might have just won Hugo Olsen this race.
Brandon Traynor was dropped behind Robert Malechka as well. 1 more corner to be perfect for Hugo Olsen. What a story it has been. He broke onto the scene, winning this event in 2020, and 2 years later, Hugo Olsen conquers the Indianapolis Motor Speedway once more to crown himself the open wheels 500-mile champion in 2022, and to put forward his candidacy for the best that iRacing IndyCar has to offer, Lewis.
Stealing the King of the Bricks. I think he'll be around that area because Brandon Traynor drops down to 6th spot, wasn't able to challenge for the victory. Olsen doing it again. I mean, he's showing that he is the man for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Absolutely sensational. And now I might not have been right on the Traynor thing, but was right on leading going into that final lap. Olsen played that brilliantly. And I completely agree with what Joe was saying. I think Blocker went for it just too early. If he'd have waited, not tried to make a move into 1 and 2, waited until turn 3, that might have been the opportunity. But when you have it staring in your face, you feel you'd feel silly if you didn't at least try.
Maybe Traynor is the king of May, but Olsen is putting forward a case to be the king of November, and hopefully it's not another 2 years before we go again, Joey, but Hugo Olsen will retain hold of that crown as the Open Wheels 500-mile race champion for at least another 12 months.
Yeah, I wish I studied up. I wish I knew how to say congratulations in Swedish. I only know how to say lycka till, which is good luck, and that's a little bit late, but look at this power slide armada coming down here to the bricks. A very good result for them either way. Clearly, Blocker's not too unhappy about it. He's still here to congratulate his teammate, Malechka, and the whole rest of the gang, Kinsella and Bennett. They're going to try and organize each other. Hopefully they got a photographer to tell them to line things up, but what a moment.
It's okay, Elliot Roberts will be behind the scenes grabbing some pictures.
Lots of photos.
Yes, lots of pictures. The rest of the drivers will clear the field and allow the King of November to burn it down once more. It is Hugo Olsen that will kiss the bricks and celebrate as the 2022 Open Wheels 500-mile race champion. And to think he wasn't sure at one point if he would be a part of the field. Let's grab a look at your unofficial OpenWheels.com race results. Half a second the margin at the end. Both Joey and Lewis think it was Adam Blocker going for the move 3 corners too early that compromised him and cost him a chance of victory. Christopher Demerit rounds out the podium for Team i5G with the Apex Racing team. 2 years on from his breakout performance, Jesper Orman does it again, up into 4th, leading the charge for the Indy Alliance Racing program. Robert Malechka jumping in front of Brandon Treno at the death. A big slide, at the very least. Treno wins the best save of the month of November. Shane Coogan, the best of the privateer entries, representing Team GDC with race first. Oster, Kinsella, 8th and 9th, while Phil Kraus, after his issue on pit lane entry and the speeding penalty, is able to at least recover a top 10 finish on the day. It will be Jason Brophy in 11th in his private label Team Hype number 88, in front of Alexis Newsom for the Team i5G with Apex Racing team, Hamilton Akabueze, and then Kevin Burrell and Andrew Marquez. Bookend the top 15 with Mitch Welker, Nagisa Yoshikawa, Seb Alexander, and Evan Adams all finishing on the lead lap. Plenty of those drivers taking advantage of the chaos and carnage around them. Not sure what happened to Henry Bennett to be scored as 1 lap down at the very end of the day, but he's in front of David Porcelli. AJ Musselman nursed damage to be 4 laps down come the checkered, while Brian Carey starts the graveyard of retirees, where Josh Chin, Dylan Freckleton, Alex Van der Sant, Josh Tucker, Matt Holliber, Brendan Lichtenberg, Adam Crane, and then Rashad Craig, Marco Brazil, and Craig Forsyth round out the field. Michael Chin was our 3rd of the scheduled alternates, not needed as a part of our field here today. There is Hugo Olsen, still celebrating on the yard of bricks. We'll give him a moment to come and join us here live in the RaceSpotTV commentary box. Another 500 miles done, Lewis, and another 3 and a bit hours with me. A very interesting race that sometimes felt like a procession.
Yeah, like I said, they were single file for quite a bit of it. Not too many. There were a lot of switches for the race lead, but you know, it was all playing the fuel mileage game. But Hugo Olsen doing it again and coming out on top. The only bit of Swedish, by the way, that I know, because I know Joe was saying his, it's Fladamus, which means bat. The only reason why I know that is because it directly translates to flappy mouse, which I think is hilarious. Love Swedish. What a language.
I mean, I guess I also have köttbullar, which is Swedish meatballs, but other than that, I'm out of luck.
We're very fluent in this commentary booth.
We do have an international commentary booth. We've got Lewis from the UK, Joey from the US, and then me, you know, well, I can technically represent 3 countries if we really wanted to, so we'll figure it out. I tell you what, though, let's not dawdle any longer. Let's head straight down to Victory Lane, where Hugo Olsen is standing by once more. Hugo, you have done it again. This time it came down all the way to the wire. What were you thinking coming into the month of November again with the crown on your head? See if we can try that again. Hugo Olsen, do you have a copy? We hear the clicks, but we don't hear Hugo talking. So we'll give him a few moments' time and see if we can drag in our race winner. Instead, let's start then from the 3rd step of the podium, where Christopher Demerit is standing by. He's chatting with Joey Tebben.
Well, Mr. Christopher Demerit, that was crazy stuff in those past couple of laps. You were in that 3rd spot. What more do you think you needed to bring down that Olsen and Blocker armada?
I just needed them to fight out more. Adam was doing a great job playing rear gunner and not giving me any lane. When I went high, he would go high. When I went low, he went low. So that's pretty much all I needed. Or I needed to be in clean air, which that restart didn't go well when Adam bombed it in, but the car was pretty good, just needed a little bit more.
Talk us through those past couple of laps, because we especially noticed you were going for some alternate lines. We saw you peek to the inside on the front straight, swerve back to the outside in turn 1. What were you thinking? Were you just trying to throw anything at it and hope something stuck? Yeah,
I was trying to cool the tires down a little bit just at the end. I had a little bit of a tire advantage, and I feel like I probably used it up by the end of the race. It didn't help that we caught a lap car draft at the end, so we just kind of got pulled around for the last few laps. Yeah, I was just trying to go for anything I could. I was hoping something would happen in front of me to be able to capitalize on it.
So P3 in qualifying on the outside of the front row, P3 in the race. of course, it's not the victory, but I'm sure you're still pretty satisfied with the performance and being the top i5G driver in the month of November.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I am disappointed, of course. You know, you're at the front so much, and P3 is a little sour. But yeah, it was a good race. Trino drove really well. He was just trying to push way too hard at the end, but I mean, you got to go for it, so I can't blame him. Trino deserved to finish in front of me.
All right, well, congrats on P3 again, and I guess we'll see you here again in May.
Yeah, thank you.
Christopher Demerit, P3 tonight or this afternoon. It feels like it's tonight. It's not tonight yet. I can only imagine it's even more so for Arjuna, but I think we got Adam Blocker next.
Yeah, Adam Blocker, second place on the day. The move tried into turn one on the final lap. He's standing by with the one and only Lewis McLeod.
Yeah, I think we should talk immediately about that move. You gave it a good go going down into the first corner. We, in the commentary, we said we might think it's a little bit too early. Did you think that it was too early? Do you kind of regret trying it into turn one? Do you kind of feel maybe you should have waited for later on in the lap?
No, if anything, I should have went earlier, as in I should have defended inside a lap earlier, because the problem was we were catching the lap car of Evan Adams, and I was estimating that we wouldn't catch him by the front on the next lap, and then we did, and that's what screwed me. But that was the only move I had, because if I had stayed behind through 1 and 2, I had arrow wash from 2 cars ahead, and I was just done. So,
well, talk us through like the positives and negatives of the day. Obviously, ignoring the final lap there, pace looks really, really good. You were working quite well with Hugo earlier on in the race. Obviously, fending off the likes of Trainer and whatnot, and that 3-wide pass to get past Trainer was absolutely brilliant. There's a lot of positives to take from this race, surely.
oh yeah, overall the race is super positive. You know, as one of the team leaders of Powerslide and one of the members of Powerslide, you know, this race just makes me really proud of all the work we did, you know, both on track in the race, all the setup and testing we did, especially the guys, you know, without me there I wasn't able to be involved as much as I usually was, but you know, the guys, especially Hugo, put in a lot of work to make the setup really good. And you know, even up until the last second, Andrew and I made some what I thought were really good changes this morning that really kind of took our setup to the next level in traffic. So yeah, I just really want to thank all those guys. But yeah, in the race, I mean, there was a couple critical moments. There was one moment I think I did a late move on the entry to 3 on Trino and Demerit. Trino and I almost crashed, but we made it through. But that kind of broke up the Demerit and Trino stranglehold on the race. And that allowed Hugo to get up to 3rd. And then eventually, yeah, the next, when we got new tires, Hugo and I were talking in Discord, how do we both get past them at the same time? And Hugo came up with a plan, and we both executed it really well. I just cleared Trino, and yeah, we were set from there.
Wow, I mean, you've been someone that's been so busy on the build up to this, and a great result to take from it. Adam, cheers for joining us, and congratulations on 2nd place.
Yeah, also can't leave out. I want to thank Arjuna for taking over this event and continuing to run it. It was a really good event once again, and yeah, hopefully we can do it again in the future.
Adam Blocker.
Awesome.
Not only trying to make me feel happy, but I will say, I don't want to spoil the news, Adam Blocker has had a very successful year in the real world in 2022, and glad to see him getting some results on track after what's been somewhat of a tough year. We drag in, though, finally his teammate Hugo Olsen, who I've been told is standing by loud and clear. Hugo first, let's check. How you doing?
Yeah, hello, Arjuna.
Hugo, Mr. Two-Time, how did you feel coming into this race in this month of November with the championship on your head and, you know, a little bit more pressure after the performance we saw from you in 2020?
Yeah, it was. I knew we had a good super speedway race package from beforehand, and yeah, the preparation for this year's event has just been to work on the small details on that, maximize everything. Yeah.
One thing that I can ask you, because I've seen, you know, your glimpse behind the scenes over the last 2 years. One thing that you have taken on the mantle of, as Adam Blocker has somewhat stepped back with his real-world commitments, is as an engineering focus and lead on the Powerslide team. How much has that been beneficial to you to develop yourself as a driver as well, understanding what the car does a little bit more?
Yeah, it's really helped doing many laps on these setups, adjusting everything, building it for my liking, and getting to know exactly how it's going to handle in different conditions, how to use the in-car tools and all of that to maximize it and have as good of a car at the end as possible there.
I'll ask you one more question and then I'll let you go off and celebrate. But what makes this event different to the month of May for you, Hugo, especially as someone now that has been through all of it and come out on top twice?
Yeah, it's the biggest thing for me in sim racing, and pretty much the biggest in iRacing, IndyCar sim racing. So yeah, it's an honor to both be able to drive for a big team as Powerslide Motorsports, and also yeah, kind of lost for words here, but
I don't blame you, Hugo.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Can't even remember the question.
You've got a bottle of milk that will be, well, a bottle for milk, empty of milk, that will be heading your way to put up against next to your 2020 title commemoration as well. Congratulations on another great run, Hugo, and hopefully it's not another 12 months.
I've had the milk bottle here from 2020. Unfortunately, I don't have a camera, so I can't connect with Zoom, but just letting everyone know that coming to good use here.
That's good to hear. Hugo Olsen off to kiss the outer bricks and to drink his milk. Let's quickly chat with Brandon Traino and talk.
Ready to do a double of a different type. Already with one race in the books here on RaceSpotTV on a Monday night from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we made the jaunt down to the streets of Belle, where we go racing for the final time this season, with 40 laps about to be thrown onto the board. Welcome along once again to RaceSpotTV. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Very excited about what lies ahead. This is, of course, a tricky track, a track that really demands the most from the driver and requires them to get the focus out on track, and it sees them come to the end of 2024 Season 2. First season in quite a while that we've been able to use the tracks from the NTT IndyCar series, and we've taken full advantage of that. We've of course linked up with them across their jaunt through the US so far, and as the drivers get ready for the race this coming weekend, we get ready to do so as well. And there will be iRacing IndyCar series action, albeit maybe with some of the main drivers not able to take so much focus on what that will lie. Now remember, technically coming into the night we had a bit of a championship fight. Now hypothetically it's still up for grabs, but being realistic at this point, all that Phil Krause has to do, stay out of trouble, and the championship would be his. Now, it's easy to say that, stay out of trouble, especially at a track like Belle, right? It's going to be interesting to see how Phil Krause runs his way on through. I'm just telling you that the official championship advantage, as it's been calculated by iRacing, is around 80 points. Adam Blocker at the end of last Monday have calculated at closer to 50 points, which is still a significant but somewhat achievable, some may argue. Qualifying running its way on through. Adam Blocker is going to be here, of course, after racing, or not racing, being part of the crew for Agustin Canapino, racing in the 108th running of the Indy 500. Blocker down in 5th, though, and 6 or 7 tenths off the pace. Great to see Phil Krause flying as ever. We'll have to wait and see where the rest of the field is going to end up stacking up as the dying seconds come on in terms of the lap times. Here comes Frankie Francica in the number 20 machine, which puts him as the lowest, I believe, second lowest I-rated driver in the field. An opportunity to gain plenty of I-rating. Into the wall on those Yuli tires, it would seem. And he will reset his way back to pit lane after that first lap put him down in the 15th position. Next cars who make their way through the final sector. Isaac Snyder, you can also see on the green striped Yulis. iRacing adding them quite recently, of course. And we have those tire graphic compound graphics that will show us that information as well. Let's not forget, as Isaac Snyder jumps up to 11th on the board, and that was his second time. Matt Taylor's gone up to 5th. That's a very good time for him, but does demote Adam Blocker down yet another position. Olivia Haywood joined us at Indianapolis. Didn't go great for her. Neither for Matt Taylor. Got tangled up, of course, in the early stages. She jumps to 14th. And now just Jaden Thurlow and Lucas Ledato and Nick Sudik, 3 drivers yet to punch themselves onto the board. So 21 drivers will get locked up and loaded to go in about 50 seconds time. There is the number 12 of Jaden Thurlow. He's heading in through the middle sector of the lap. There is Lucas Ledato in the number 11 machine for Bearcat Motorsports. Very, very bouncy there. Remember, this is such a challenge in terms of chassis setup. Getting the most from the balance of the car as it pitches its way around the track. Ledato crossing the stripe with about 15 seconds to spare, so he will only get the one time. It gets him up to 19th. Now, Jaden Thurlow has one more time to add to the board. A 1:12.4 to beat. He punches in a 1:15, so a little bit further down, of course, in the field, but at least gets that time, albeit maybe invalidated in the closing stages for running a little bit wide. Oh, that's brutal, and it shows how dangerous it can be. Phil Krause has done what he needs to, though, and we're ready to go racing. We love the streets of Belle, and we love racing here in the virtual world. Let's see how they'll line up for the racing ahead, where, of course, Phil Krause will be alongside of Kevin Burrell in the Indy Alliance Racing colors. John Badefer for the Alpine Stars, or rather Hydra Race Geodesic Racing team. My memory's going back a couple of years in time, apparently, is alongside Brody Garner. Then Matt Taylor 5th, alongside of Adam Blocker, who's got some work to do from 6th on the board. Rashad Craig in the black and green Indy Alliance Racing colors is alongside Ben Dickey, with Nicholas Short and Tristan Moss through your top 10. Charlie Sears and then Isaac Snyder make up the rest of your top 6 rows, with Victor Roldan, Olivia Haywood, Tyler Dubois, and then Brian Carey rounding out your front 8. Those cars all within around 2.5 seconds, but Joseph Manning, Frankie Francicia down the back of the field alongside Lucas Ledato are the final drivers with times on the board. Nick Sudik, Jaden Thurlow 20th and 21st with some work to do. So difficult sometimes in qualifying to judge the margins. How close to the wall do you dare get? Always interesting to find out how risky the drivers play, and that's why often you'll see them use the first lap as a banker and the second lap as the push lap. 40 laps of racing. Be interesting to see what tire compound drivers elect to start with. Now, they have to use both compounds of tire through the race. The Waiuli green wall tire, a little bit softer, it does degrade a little bit faster, but in the conditions that we have now, 32 degrees Celsius, mostly cloudy, might end up being the preferred compound of tire. We'll have to wait and see. Mostly cloudy as well means I don't think we're going to see too much variation in the temperature through the course of the 40 laps of racing, which should take no more than around 50 minutes for these drivers out on track. Rough fuel calculations, if you're wondering as well. And I say rough because, I don't drive, so it's always hard to trust a commentator's math then, especially when it is a commentator. But probably around 23 laps. So if the alternate tire is preferred, keep that in mind. Can tell you there are a handful of takers onto the primaries. So the Waiulis, about half the field electing to start on them. See Brian Carey potentially starting down on pit lane, although there seems to maybe be some technical issues as well. It's Phil Krause at the front, and maybe it's a championship coronation. But on the streets of Belle, it's never an easy drive. Off and away we go. 40 laps of racing underway. Kevin Burrell in second, slides into line. Adam Blocker immediately past Matt Taylor. Run their way across the bump, down to turn number 3. Heavy braking zone awaits. And does anyone lock up? Seems relatively tidy. Big send from behind. Brody Garner goes straight into the wall. So does Tristan Moss. Olivia Haywood may be tangled up as well. 2 for 2 in drama, unfortunately. You can see on the left side who's on what tire. We've got, as I said, a pretty even split, all things considered. Badefer joins Blocker and Taylor on the primaries. Can Kevin Burrell and Phil Krause run away at the front? Rashad Craig then sits behind Ben Dickey, who's the next car on the alternate. He will really be looking to put the challenge onto Matt Taylor. Right on board from the nose cone of the 15. Gets super close up through the hairpin. Ben Dickey, 15th car in terms of iRating, but we always talk about how iRacing doesn't always tell the full story. Now Matt Taylor went straight into the wall. Ben Dickey may have followed him as well. End of lap number 1. It is Phil Krause that leads from Kevin Burrell. As may be expected from many, can Krause pull away as Dickey, one of the first onto the button. Ryan Carey's technical issues have finally resolved themselves, and he is back out onto track, albeit already 1 lap adrift. Let's go back to turn 3, start of the race. So Brody Gardner's weaving a little bit. And then, well, I think it's fair to say, just outbrakes himself. Let's ride with Olivia Hayward. Now Tristan Moss is going to go into the wall, I think, all in a separate incident. And indeed, Hayward just tries to find a way through the madness. Unfortunately, unable to pick their way through. Big damage, though, for Tristan Moss. One more look at it, and then a couple more looks maybe at some other replays as well. Oh, contact off the back of Rashad Craig. Got to wonder if maybe there's going to be some damage. Nick Short checked up in that one as well. Couple of moments of chaos. And then Isaac Snyder down the back straightaway. What happens here? It's Joseph Manning directly behind and straight off into the wall. We've done it before. We've all done it before. Unfortunate. So 1.7 seconds the margin to your race leader. Phil Krause breaking away. 13.767. Last time by. Fastest lap, of course, of the race. It's a good 4/10 faster than Kevin Burrell. It's a good 1.5 seconds quicker than John Bader for the first of the cars on the primaries. Again, reminder, left side, you see those split calls on tires. Ben Dickey now on the offense. What can Adam Blocker do? Those Waiuli's going to have so much grip. Remember, they're 1.5 seconds faster in the hands of Phil Krause. On the curb a little bit there for Adam Blocker. Let's see if either one of these drivers uses a push to pass, or sometimes what can end up being a push to defend. Don't really want to use it down onto this pit straight. Instead, maybe out of turns 1 and 2. Right on board. Clipping the inside curb. You can see the bumps, how it snaps the steering around. And then the LEDs go alight. Rev screen goes alight as well. And push to pass activated. But Ben Dickey doesn't get close enough and then locks up the right front. Almost gets out of shape. Just about hangs on to it. You can see the grip differential though. Oh, Ben Dickey tries a bit too hard. Tries into the wall. At 4 of 40. This will be tough. A race of attrition in so many different ways. Some drivers missing in action because they're off focusing on qualifying for the iRacing Indy 500, to which we say, we don't blame you, but we miss you, and you suck. We especially appreciate the likes of Matt Taylor and Olivia Hayward trying to do the double. Matt Taylor's, bonk into the wall doesn't seem to have cost him too much. Can't get away with more than sometimes you think you can. Anyway, 4 laps complete. Phil Krause now 2 seconds clear at the front of the field. I think that margin just going to keep growing and growing as we work through the course of the race. If you're wondering what we're talking about with Matt Taylor, as you watch him run off the track in the live picture, this is what happened. Bouncing on the curb. It wasn't necessarily hitting the wall, but a big snap of opposite lock. And really having to slide and hang on to that car. Ben Dickey's perspective of it. I think both cars do end up grazing the wall. might just be the iRacing predictive netcode system as well, telling us that there's contact when on their screen they've got just enough of a margin. Fuel window could go as long as 23 laps, remember. Can the Waiulis hold up? Reminder, Ben Dickey past Matt Taylor, not past Adam Blocker just yet. So Baderfer now and Blocker effectively locked on strategy together. How does that impact their mindset? Blocker maybe saving a bit more fuel behind. Bit of lift and coast. Alternate fuel map. One or the other. Maybe both. Why not? Adam Blocker used to be a right foot breaker as well, which was, you know, crazy for me as his teammate. He's now migrated to left foot braking, which is, you know, what most people do. But, you know, even talking to the likes of Brian Till, the idea of, you know, left foot and right foot braking, it's so interesting listening to them. Spencer Bumpelli, you know, he's 45 years old, so, you know, he's a veteran in the world of racing, but he's raced so many different things and is always on standby to go and race NASCAR machines, which, you know, Cup Series cars now are a lot, you know, more supercar, you know, GT sports car-esque. And so you don't need to necessarily do the heel and toe, but, you know, some of the Xfinity cars and stuff in the day used to. So, you know, Spencer's been a long time right foot breaker. And he's always argued that it doesn't really make a difference. It's how you use the pedals rather than which feet you use to dance on them. Now he says that, but I have 2 left feet and I can't shuffle on a dance floor, so does that mean that if you have 2 left feet you can't drive a race? See, I don't know. It's confusing. What I do know is Matt Taylor into the wall, and Matt Taylor into the wall hard. Loses the front nose cone on the MadWorks Motorsports machine. And well, that car, worse for the wear, going to be limped back around and then nursed potentially back into race-worthy condition. What happened? Off into turn 3. Bumpy braking zone, of course. Is he too deep? Is he too committed? I don't think he's even gone in that fast. I think it more is... It is hard to tell. Look on board may give us a bit better perspective. Slowing down just before the 3. He may have gone in a bit hot, but I think it's almost just like the brake bias is set in a rather uncomfortable place for how much brake he had, how much bumpiness maybe he was rolling through as well. All those, you know, little things that do come into play. But anyway, off and away. Phil Kraus now 2.6 seconds clear in that bright pink machine. Almost grazes the outside wall. So fine the margins here. But if you can dance with the devil, you can gain those crucial little bits of momentum that you need to. And confidence so important at this track as well, right? To be able to get the most from the car at the end of the day. If you're not willing to get up there to the wall, you're not going to end up making the speed that you need compared to some of the others, unfortunately. So, read into that as you will, as Phil Kraus just continues to pound in the laps across the line. Let's ride on board with Phil, why don't we? With not much happening out on track. Bader for Blocker and Dickey still holding on. Through 1 and 2, bumpy on exit, be careful not to push out into the wall on the outside. A little bit of understeer if you're not careful. Then, you can hear a little bit of fuel saving down through the gears. Don't clip the inside curb. And be careful on the outside. Momentum. That's the key word here in this middle portion of the lap. Sweep it through the corners. But watch the hands at work as well. Soft hands, not fast hands, soft hands. Here on iRacing, got to be very, very careful. Pato Awards fast hands might be very, very good at Indy. Could sort the wheel very well as here as well, but when you're trying to preserve the tires on iRacing, it's what Phil Kraus is doing that you want to see. Through this double left-hander, set up for the hairpin, brake early. And then big snap of oversteer as he try and get on power on a very, very bumpy exit. Double right-hander away. Don't be too greedy through the first. It compromises you and costs you through the second. Just watch, though. Mastery. Phil Krause has got this place figured out. That time by does a 1:14.1, so he's only dropped around 4/10 off of his fastest lap of the race and has yet to use a push-to-pass as well. Here's a look at how it sits in terms of those lap times through the field. Crossover point maybe coming in somewhat soon. Adam Blocker did a 14.7. Birrell a 14.4. About a quarter of the way through the race. It'll be fun to see how it plays out if these drivers end up coming in early. The risk ends up being, right, the traffic further behind. A trip down pit lane, well, how long is it going to cost you? Depends if you speed at the end of the day. As Blocker makes himself known in the mirrors, bit of mental mind games going on. Track map shows you just a little bit more, though, of what's going on. Comment in chat, we need to get Phil Krause in real-life IndyCar. I agree, you know. Although Phil Krause has been locked in the Team Talent House, unfortunately, per Dakota DiCienzo. So that does become an issue. When we created this YouTube link, by the way, I didn't realize that there's this new YouTube thing called Ads Automator on. It was about to serve up some ads to you fine viewers, so we turned that off. And we'll stay here live and uninterrupted until the end of this race. This is effectively nothing but racing here on RaceSpotTV on a Monday night. We took a brief break, yes, for coverage of the Open Wheels 500. If you stuck around for that, what a wonderful memory the month of November was. Hugo Olsen becoming a two-time Open Wheels 500 champ. Back in the pack, Tyler DeBosch and Joseph Manning. Both cars already up a handful of spots, 7 and 8 respectively. What can they do from here? Stripes on the side of the 18 of Manning. And then the blue with red numbers for Tyler DeBosch. Had 10 laps complete, so these drivers probably now starting to wonder the alternate tire law. Having to use it in the case of Joseph Manning. For Tyler DeBosch, he's already on the Waiulis. He's going to have to switch on over to the primaries. When will they do that? When is the right time to do that as well? Adam Blocker is really closing on the back of John Baderford, by the way. Weaving one way than the other. Does he think he's faster? Now, Krause did a 13.997 last lap. Unreal pace. Birrell in comparison, 14.586. There you can see, lap time comparison. Absolutely bonkers there. Meanwhile, up the road, John Baderford still frustrating, still holding on. That Powerslide Motorsports car of Adam Blocker. 2 positions up, but it does seem as though the championship going the way of Phil Krause. All things considered, Blocker has missed a couple of races here and there, you know, limited time to practice, often with his travel schedule as part of the NTT IndyCar Series paddock. What does that mean in terms of his focus for the rest of this year? Not going to be racing in the iRacing Indy 500, unfortunately. He'll be heading to Detroit's downtown track to be a performance engineer with that 78 crew. But big news, of course, in the world of iRacing with what is to come in terms of the IndyCar Pro Series, and plenty of excitement about the qualifying series that lies await as well. There is Phil Krause, 4 seconds his margin. Slightly cooling off, if anything, this lap. Just looks as though that car is so stable on the bumps. Waiuli tires giving him no concern. You have to get into a trance in so many ways at this track, I feel. Let the rhythm guide you. And once you're in that rhythm, don't get yoinked out of it, which, let's be real, it can be quite easy to have happen to you, often through no fault of your own. You can see there the margin back to the Indy Alliance Racing driver. Meanwhile, Ben Dickey has dropped off the back of the battle for the final step on the podium. His Waiulis maybe have run the roost. How are they going to be able to close up? Later stage, of course, they'll be on Waiulis that will be wearing. Phil Kraus will be on the primaries that might still be holding on to their performance. Love these alternate strategies as well, and what it gives us. Just a little bit more intrigue and excitement. Now, if you're watching on RaceSpotTV, maybe it is time for you to let us know. Belle Isle or this new downtown track, which one do you like more? Because I've definitely got my favorite. And it's the one we're at right now. We've seen some great races here in the virtual world. Some great races in the real world, of course, as well. We'll see how it all goes downtown Detroit moving forward. It is a shame to lose Belle Isle. It's at least great to have it preserved here in the virtual world. Nearing on the halfway mark of this race. Adam Blocker works off of turn 3. Still yet to use a push to pass. Not uncommon for the Powerslide Motorsports driver. He likes to sometimes just keep it in the bank. You also have to keep in mind your fuel reserves. That 60 to 70 horsepower spurt you get can very much eat into your fuel supplies if you're cutting it, rather fine on a fuel margin. No plenum issues for us to deal with here in the real world, by the way. We saw so many of them on qualifying weekend, hoping the drivers aren't going to be complaining about their engines this week in iRacing Indy 500Q. Smooth hands from Blocker, navigating us around for a lap. Back to Tyler Dubois and to Joseph Manning, yet to swap around in the positions as they work their way through. Oh, there's a car upside down! Oh, Lord! Tristan Moss somehow ends up on the lid. Not quite sure how that one even happens. Here's a look at why. Hits the inside, hits the outside, and the assist from Francica. Physics. One more look at this. And I tell you what, I wish I had super slow-mo music to go with it, but slow it down. I tell you, let's see what we can do. Look at this moment. Bam! Off it goes. Almost into the barrier. RaceSpot meantime officially over as Francica down on the lane. And back over to drivers still out there on track. Tristan Moss rejoins us in the RaceSpotTV YouTube chat. Unfortunately, he's upside down. Yes, we can confirm, Tristan. You were upside down. The AMR safety crew, best in the biz, got you out of there quickly, though. And we stay green. 30 minutes or so of racing estimated still for us to run through. Probably close to when drivers might decide to come in if they're on the Waiuli compound of tire. Which again, remember, plenty of the field is. They're feeling the drop off, the wear. Still need 23, 24 of the finest laps to hold on here. And the compromise, remember, on setup is that At a track like this, you want to be soft. That allows the car to, you know, have some compliance over the bumps, right? To be springy. But the issue with that is then you have a car that pitches around a lot, susceptible a lot more to weight transfer, and quite importantly in an IndyCar with some relatively high-speed corners here as well, an unstable aero platform. And so if you run very soft, you do end up having a bit more of a compromise sometimes over, like, you know, turns 1 and 2, for example. So, you know, setup balance is such a fine margin to play, and one where the drivers are always working to try and make it even better. On board with Jaden Thurlow. Now, even through here, downforce works even as slow as, what, 40-ish miles an hour? So through these medium speed corners where they're still carrying a decent rate of knots, almost 200 kilometers an hour, which works out to 125 miles an hour. Pretty decent. Lock up, and Thurlow hits the wall. Tire barrier claims his left front wing plate for a moment. It's back onto his car though, so the iRacing gods have smiled down on him. Olivia Hayward's into pit lane. I think that might be a scheduled stop. First driver to switch over. John Badeford dives. Blocker stays out. And this is where we find out how strong the crossover ends up being. So compare your race leader to Adam Blocker. Blocker using the first of his push to passes now that he's been released. 14 seconds the advantage. We've still got 21 laps to go next time by. There is a long old distance for these drivers to survive. Blocker uses the button once again. Every little advantage he can find, he's taking advantage of. Here is John Badeford, back out onto track. He's got some traffic in front of him as he gets his Waiulis up to temperature. Onto the back straightaway. Now, does Adam Blocker follow? That is the question. Kraus and Burrell stay out, and Adam Blocker down to pit lane. Important stop. Can he undercut John Badeford with a slightly shorter pit stop? Technically, I know, yes, that is an overcut, but you know what I mean. Badeford's coming through the final couple of corners. Blocker drops and rolls. Firestone tires added. Full tank of fuel. Now, he'll be a little bit slower initially as the Waiulis come up to temperature, but Badeford is just behind. Blocker has it done. Will he get on the button? Yes, he will. Badeford does not respond in kind. Slides back into line. Look to the outside momentarily. Can he take advantage? Can Blocker get the tires fired up quick enough? Remember, tires are part of your suspension setup as well. Your suspension operates at its finest when your tires are up to temperature. Very, very bouncy. Both drivers on the button. Side by side, they go down the back straightaway. Blocker has the inside. Badeford the long way round. And he'll get shoved off into the wall. Contact was made, and Badeford worse for it. We take a look at the replay. We'll take a look at it once more as well. Over the shoulder of Adam Blocker we ride. Now this will give us a bit better of a tail. Slow it down. The contact made. Now that corner not necessarily a place you want to go side by side. And John Badeford then ended up having a subsequent moment as well. We'll get that up on your screen. The front nose cone already, you can see the damage through the final corner. And I think that's going to be him into pit lane and out of this race. Never mind. I stand corrected. He doesn't have steering, you can see. He's struggling with the right hand down steering. And Blocker now with the slide. Blocker into the wall. And Blocker with a broken car. Right front, right rear, done for sure. And that's championship game, set, and match the way of Phil Kraus. If you're going to win a championship, you want to win it in style. And that's exactly what Phil Kraus is about to do. He's 8.5 seconds clear of Kevin Burrell. I think any chance of there being a fight officially in the books, as there comes Blocker down into pit lane. Waiuli's going to go the distance, 22 laps and counting. Rashad Craig on the button. Phil Kraus has been very, very reticent to use it until just now. There you go. Right on cue. He'll be down to pit lane, you assume. And in that private label team hype machine, has managed to go one lap longer than Burrell. Is this Burrell just feeling a little bit more pain on the tire potentially though? Sun is starting to set. Up on the jacks, Waiuli switched over to primaries. Engine roars into life. Off and away. Indy Alliance Racing car going to come out in front of his teammate, of course. Now Rashad Craig might end up a little bit closer to the likes of Ben Dickey and Charlie Sears than initially wanted. In fact, Craig not even into the box yet, so never mind that. Dickey into a podium spot. Charlie Sears has pitted as well. Victor Roldan is yet to box. But this is now officially a fight for a podium spot. A little bit close for comfort into the braking zone for Charlie Sears. Big wiggle there as well. They're pushing hard. Only got about 16 laps to go next time by, and so is Victor Roldan off and away from pit lane. All but 5 cars 1 lap down. Yes, remember, your leader yet to box. He's gone on to a quite remarkable 24th lap of the stint. He's just putting on a show. Charlie Sears has dropped back slightly now, courtesy of a small mistake. There's your race leader, though. Up front and clear. Last time by, he did a 13.430. That was the fastest lap of the race. Yeah, Phil Kraus is just that guy. He, alongside Brandon Trainer, and maybe Adam Blocker, stand as the 3 most likely candidates for the community representatives, if you will, for the to come iRacing Pro Series. They might have some stern competition, but they'll show exactly how strong their fight is when they head to the speedway for qualifying, and I'm sure the big names end up showing up as well. Into the box, Kraus will jump. 4 tires, tank of fuel, and off and away he'll go from the best stall of them all. There he goes. Nice and safe pit stop. Victor Roldan had to come back down to pit lane. I suspect that might have been a speeding penalty in the first pit stop sequence. Unfortunate issue for him. What happened to Lucas Lodato, though? The 11 Bearcat machine down into the very, very important right-hander. Small mistake, revs the engine, gets out of there without too much of a time loss. Tyler DeBosch. Let's check out what happens to him in that 21 with the red number, of course. Locks up, goes deep, and puts it into reverse gear. Easy to find on iRacing, much more difficult to find in the real world. Sometimes there's like a 20,000 point procedure that you have to go through to get into reverse gear. Not actually, but, you know, hyperbole. Hyperbole gets you far. So as Kraus is off and back on track, will we find out the time this time by? How does he compare on these primaries, excuse me? No, this is his first time lap that he's beginning right now. Let's jump on board. Only driver within 1.5 seconds, Tyler DuBois and Olivia Hayward. It's that type of race, at least at this point. Nice and tidy off of 3. Watch him through 4. Balancing the car every time on a knife edge. Back up through the gears. So smooth with every little input. That's so important as well, right? These are cars that have no power steering, and so you want to muscle them in some regards. It's a fine line that you're walking at all times. Going to be an interesting run as well, as mentioned, the grind for qualifying. I distinctly remember back in 2020, which was my first experience with Powerslide Motorsports, getting to see, you know, the preparations and whatnot. That was also, you know, a year unique because of COVID, where, you know, everyone's back home free for effectively the week because they could put aside any sort of focus. They were doing runs every hour in the qualifying sessions. But in between that, you've got all the analysis to then go and try and figure out, right, how do we get the setup slightly better? How do I drive slightly better? How are the other drivers finding their speed? Look at their onboards. Try and ascertain setup things that you can. It's those fine details that go a long way. And of course, you know, qualifying setups are, they can be tough to drive. Ideally, they're not tough to drive. You've got to be in front of the car for 16 corners. It sounds easy. But 16 corners, 16 moments of perfection. Phil Kraus has got some traffic in front of him now. Already put a lap on so much of the field. Tyler DuBois hunted down by Olivia Hayward. That Prismatic Motorsport machine doing the double here on RaceSpotTV. Hayward involved in the lap 1 incident. And now on the button. Still has 8 usages left. Tyler DuBois has not touched it just yet. Oh, big lockup. Moment. And goes through, does Olivia Hayward. Got a little bit crossed up there for a moment to Tyler DuBois, and Hayward hesitant, but mainly was a bit careful about the car bouncing off the wall and bouncing into incoming traffic. We've seen a car bounce onto its lid. You know, weirder things have happened. Such a difficult ride here physically as well if you have a direct drive wheelbase. Every single corner feels like you're holding on to the car. And, you know, it's crazy that, you know, back in the day of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing series, you know, when it first started, so many of the drivers would turn off the force feedback. I don't really think they needed it, so. It's one of those things where, as the technology, I guess, has also evolved, drivers find their ability to sense and find the speed in the car from different ways. So always looking for the little edges that they can. Fight for 7. Jaden Thurlow on the button to try and cover off Brody Garner, who's trying to attack on the button. No pass into the corner at the end of the back straightaway. At least just yet. Now, both these drivers did had a slightly longer pit stop just to change a front wing, if you will. Quite easy to do, hit the wall, and that last pit stop time on the left side of the screen tells you that anyone who did a double-digit pit stop had that front wing replacement. And so these two could have found themselves, well, a little bit closer to Joseph Manning, but not that much closer. He's still 10 seconds clear, so would have only been a gain of around 5 seconds. So splits the gap in half, yes, but some hard work to do. Don't worry about Ben Dickey. It was not a half a second pit stop. Sometimes the timing screen just can't catch the pit stop time. Jaden Thurlow goes deep, now backs up, and unfortunately loses a position in the process. Another driver getting caught out by the braking zone at turn 3. And unfortunately, down through the field. 10 laps to go next time by for Phil Kraus, though. Up the very front of the field. Hit a crackle of the engine there as he went down through the gears. Such a visceral sounding car as well. Oh, these Dallara R18s. It's going to be interesting when the hybrid is introduced, of course, at Mid-Ohio, how it's going to play out. It is going to be on the oval sooner rather than later, too. Replay will show that peek into the mirror maybe just set off Jaden Thurlow. Ran a bit deep. And, well, backed up as quick as they could and spun the car around. Still find themselves a good 13 seconds clear of Olivia Hayward and company, so that will give them plenty of margin with which to work with. Still watching your leader, Phil Kraus's Victor Roldan, the next to happen issue. Parked on the side of the track, back down on pit lane. Got to assume something has gone wrong for him. I think something's already happened to him a couple of times, and he's trying to suss out the car's behavior. Doesn't feel confident enough in the behavior, and thinks, you know what, get me out of here. It's not worth trying to risk anyone else's race from going wrong. And to that I say credit where credit's due. Important to remember, of course, that you are racing around other people on the track as well. Down through the gears. Bam, 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 bam. Kevin Burrell in that Indy Alliance racing car. New team for him, of course, heading into the crucial week ahead. I'm sure full of confidence and ready to go racing. The grind in qualifying is real as well, let's not forget. I've been talking about the week of preparation, but the grind drains you so much, and then you get to the end of Friday, you know whether you made the 33 fastest or not, and then you've got to start thinking, right, is our race setup good enough now? Race setups, you know, that have to take into account the potential maybe for changing conditions, for the fact that if you start up front, you might have cleaner air initially, and a bit more dirty air at the back if you drop down potentially by, you know, making a mistake on pit lane like Jason Brophy does. Jason Brophy says no, it's not. I don't know exactly what he's referring to, because I could have said a lot that plenty have disagreed with today, to be fair. It's not been the most coherent of broadcasts, I'm assuming, given that I got off a plane, headed straight back to my home, and turned on my computers to get ready to broadcast. The coke clock took a lot out of me last night, I'm not gonna lie. The race set is not good enough. Jason Brophy says that, but Jason, I'm going to say this on air, and don't hate me for saying it. You guys always have great qualifying setups at Team Talent, Private Label, Team High. The race setups haven't always been there. So yes, hopefully you can focus more on that, is what I'm trying to say. We'll look on the bright side of things. Brian Carey, by the way, I think more technical issues for him have seen him back down on pit lane. I know, Jason, I know. He's broken the caps lock out, everybody who is watching and not reading in chat. And yes, again. Sounds like what you need is to turn on the AI to whatever their maximum strength is and try and beat them with whatever setups you're making, because that might give you the incentive to get that magic little click to figure out the setup. I've always wondered if the AI is actually useful at Indy for race set practice, and I think the answer for the most part is no, but maybe the situational practice that you can do. Jason Brophy says, not really that helpful compared to running with the top-level Indy drivers. I was talking to a driver in the Porsche Super Cup about some of the race preparations they do, and they'll just, drive around on track in the ways they would drive if they, 3 wide, for example. They'll say, oh, what would I do if I go 3 wide into this corner? I'm on the outside. What about in the middle? What about on the inside? And they'll just, approach it from each different perspective. And slowly but surely, by the end of that session, you've got a pretty good grasp of what you want to do around the track. At Indy, I guess there's so many different ways that you can attack each situation as well. We talk about the arcs off the corner. So many are going to talk about, could Pato have done something different? I think the answer to that one is he couldn't. I think he basically did all that he could. It was just Joseph Newgarden really had the confidence to send it around the outside of turn 3, had the momentum off of turn 2 as well. It all just came together. We've finally got 2 coming together on alternate tire compounds. Charlie Sears in front of Rashad Craig, although quite interestingly, Craig is on the primaries. They just haven't fallen off as much as one may have expected. He's still around 7/10 a lap quicker. Is that enough for him to get past? Almost into the wall for a moment. Always looks as though they're just sliding out. Slide, slide, slide. Bounce, bounce, bounce as well over the bumps in through turns 2 and up to turn 3. Lucas Lodato on the button. Started with 21. We knew attrition would be big. Only 12 drivers are left running, 5 of whom are actually on the lead lap. Both these drivers electing to try and burn through their push to passes. They've got 4 to use each. They've got 4 laps to go as well. Kind of makes it quite simple in terms of 4 laps to go at the line. Makes it quite simple as to how to ration them on out. And you can get the information on iRacing when you're driving as to what the other driver is doing in terms of the push to pass usage. Often ends up, therefore, resulting in that situation where you respond pretty quickly if you see your, overlays, for example, telling you that there is something going on. Meanwhile, as Phil Kraus just continues to lead, 40-something seconds clear of the battle we were watching on your screen, he will actually come back around to take 4 laps to go. Slightly confused there in terms of the ordering of operations. Such was his margin that I thought that Sears and Craig would still end up seeing the same number of laps. Anyway, moving swiftly on as Charlie Sears pulls away now from Rashad Craig after getting on the button for a moment. Out wide, just for a moment. Pushes wide in a very controlled manner. Once you are in the rhythm, it doesn't actually feel that dramatic when you have those moments. And that's important. You have to get there. It's not something that everyone can do. And Detroit and Long Beach are such, Belle Isle and Long Beach rather, such different tracks as well, that if you're good at one, it's no guarantee you'll be good at the other. Now, damage on the front of Brody Garner's car. Danger as Jaden Thurlow closes from behind. Roars through. And lack of front wing going to hurt quite drastically. But what can they do with it? As long as you park your car on the apexes in the right place, I don't think you're necessarily in a place where you're not going to be able to defend. You're just really going to be compromised through some of the faster corners in particular. So as they continue to run their way through, 3 to go for your race leader, which will be 2 at the line. Thurlow, you can see how much he closes up through turns 1 and 2, but closed too much too early. Now has to try and pop out and go the long way around. And that's going to be a brave move if he can make it stick on the brakes. Can't even cut back underneath. This is what I was talking about when it was coming down to the parking on the apexes and frustrate the cars you fight with. Only that left front is missing. Looks like the side pod's all good. Underside of the car looks pretty good as well. Crisscross not going to work here. It's going to have to be something else. Might have to be a desperation move up into turn 1 or something. Or lay back, really lay back. So slow through the hairpin. You can tell that Thurlow biting at the bit. Both cars on the primary should have similar amounts of grip. Two to go for your race leader. Very close once more, though, in this fight. Once again, on the button, the both of them. Phil Kraus trying to maybe set a new fastest lap as well. Got to within 1/10 of a second of his previous fastest lap in this race last time by. Out of turn 3. Very slow for Brody Garner. Has opened the door for Jaden Thurlow. Has got the inside line up through turn 5. Squeezed out wide. And Brody Garner holding on in a emphatic defense here. There, though, is your race leader. Coming out of the final corner. Phil Kraus sees the white flag here. One more lap to go before he's officially the 2024 Season 2 champion. We still have our fights, Charlie Sears and Rashad Craig. 4th and 5th for the two of them. Push the passes on offer as well. And of course, Brody Garner with a lack of front wing, trying to hold off Jaden Thurlow. They're getting ready to head out into the final corner to start their final lap of this race. This turn 1 section really where you think that you'd have to back up. Not going to back up just this time. We'll try and get the slingshot. We'll try and get the run. It's going to be a brave move if he can make it happen, that will be sure. Lock up of the brakes there for Garner, into the wall and up the inside. Jaden Thurlow takes advantage. Emphatic move, and here it comes as well for Charlie Sears and Rashad Craig. Craig goes out wide. Through turn 3, tries to switch back underneath, but caught out. Here he comes though, another win to add to the collection. Phil Kraus builds a house and wins on the streets of Belle Isle and wins the 2024 Season 2 Championship in the IndyCar Open Series. It will be a long wait before we finally get to see Kevin Burrell grab second in that Indy Alliance racing machine, starting off this week in fine form. And then Ben Dickey will be supremely thrilled to hold on to a spot on the podium. 5 positions gained for him, stayed out of trouble, stayed out of the drama, and made sure to stay out of the wall. Spraying the champagne in a couple of moments' time. Meanwhile, Charlie Sears, Rashad Craig, now battle to the line. And the final cars on the lead lap scored in 4th and 5th position. What a race. Phil Kraus goes up on top and builds up now to what lies ahead. It's going to be fun this weekend. We'll have a double dose of Indy. The iRacing Indy 500, the iRacing Fixed Indy 500 as well, and coverage of all to come on the iRacing Esports Network. We'll have a qualifying show on Friday night as well to build up to the final showdown, hoping that we get some potential final runs that really light the boards alight in the final session as well, as unlikely as that may seem. But we will wait and see. Final drivers have crossed the line. We can take you down to grab the race results, pending, of course, any final intervention from Nim and the team at iRacing. Phil Kraus, 23-odd seconds clear of Kevin Burrell, and then Ben Dickey, Charlie Sears, 3rd and 4th positions. There'll be Rashad Craig, Joseph Manning, Jaden Thurlow, Brody Garner, and then Olivia Hayward and Tyler DeBosch, your top 10. Give a shout out to Jaden Thurlow, 14 positions gained, by the way, before you get to Lucas Lodato and then into the graveyard. Victor Roldan, Nicholas Sudik, Brian Carey, Nicholas Short, Adam Blocker, John Bader, Frankie Franchicha, Tristan Moss, and then Matt Taylor. It's Isaac Snyder at the very back of the field, and as that rundown through the results comes to an end, we head down to Phil Kraus winning once more and signing off this championship on fine form. How are you feeling, Phil? Was that stressful at all, or were you having a nice, comfortable Monday night drive?
Yeah, Arjuna, it feels good, but yeah, that was definitely one of the calmer races I've had at Detroit in recent memory. My first laps of practice were like an hour before the race, hour and a half. Kind of in between those two opens, because obviously you did the last open. I kind of sucked in that open. I couldn't keep up with Hamilton and Hugo on that last run. So we know we have work to do on that side of things, but definitely good at Detroit here today.
Yeah, I'm sure that feels good and getting up to speed pretty quickly as well. Let's talk about the week ahead then, because championship now under your shoulder. I'm sure the focus lies on first grabbing pole position for the iRacing Indy 500 and then converting it to a victory. How are you feeling heading into the week that we've got?
I mean, I don't know. I've kind of been a mix of emotions this last week when it comes to Indy prep. Some races I feel like, yeah, we have a good piece, and then like after that last open, it's like, what do I need? What more do I need to actually be able to compete with the Powerslide and i5G car? But for quali, we're usually pretty stout, but it's looking like the start of the 500 itself is going to be pretty cold. So quali position probably won't matter as much as it has in the past, but we'll have to see, Arjuna.
So slice and dice is what I'm hearing. Qualifying, how many runs are you going to put in? Tell me.
I can't give you an exact number. I mean, you know I'm giving you one run at the end of the week, Arjuna. You already made me sign up for that.
There we go.
We'll give it a good few attempts. Obviously, this weather threw a bit of a curveball for everyone, so probably a lot of adjusting we have to do on our quali car. So we'll see where we're at come Wednesday, Thursday. Today, I don't think anyone's really going to put down a representative time, but later on in the week, we'll really know where things stack up.
And pole prediction. Come on, before we let you go.
Like a time?
Yes.
I don't know. The humidity dropped so much that it really kicked the times forwards. I'm gonna say somewhere in like the mid-2s average, I guess.
It's a 39.2s.
Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. I don't know how much this humidity drop's actually gonna speed up the cars, because I know what we could do with higher humidity. With lower humidity, I might be way too slow. We'll see.
You spitballed. We'll see how accurate that is on Friday. Congratulations on the win in the championship, Phil, and best of luck for the week that lies ahead.
Yep, cheers, Arjuna.
Phil Kraus dominant up front. Let's head down to second place for a moment where Kevin Burrell is standing by. Kevin, a bit of a quiet drive for you there. 23 seconds off the pace of Phil Kraus at the end, who was truly flying on those alternate tires. Were you watching him and thinking, well, how are you doing that lap after lap after lap?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the start of the alt stint, I noticed kind of that my tires were taking maybe, I don't know if it took a little longer to come in or whatever, but I had a bit of a okay start. I felt like, okay, yeah, Phil, like we're like a quarter of the way through the race and Phil's like 3 seconds up on me. So for me, that's a good result already. And then when we got to the primes and his actually came in and mine just did not for like 13, 14 laps, at the end of the race, I'm like, ooh, finally we can drive. So, I mean, I think a lot of people had trouble today just with the temps very low, much lower than IAS. The primes were just way too hard here.
And, you know, let's talk about times because temps low for qualifying as well for the iRacing Indy 500. Spitball me a predicted pole time. What do you think the 4-lap average is going to be that gets you to lead us to the green this coming Saturday?
That's what are the temps? Do you know what our track temp is?
No idea. I've been up here.
Okay. I'm going to go with let's say 0.45. 0.45.
Okay, so just so you know, Phil just estimated a mid 39.2. So, 39.25 or something.
Never mind then. I think we're going,
It's cold.
Really? If it's cold, then yeah, I think we could see. I'm gonna go 39.30. That's
Okay.
where I'm gonna go.
Let's go. We'll see who's right on Friday in our qualifying show. Congratulations, Kevin, on second, and we'll see how this week goes for you. An important week ahead.
Thank you. See you around.
And we'll see Kevin around the Speedway moving forward, of course, this week. And boy, what a season it has been, and a season that now officially comes to a close. Yes, there is still plenty more racing from the streets of Belle for some of these drivers. The iRacing IndyCar Open Series will continue to run its course this week, but many of the top drivers have their focus locked in on the Speedway. And all that action live on the iRacing Esports Network lies ahead. But for now, it's time to say goodbye. Hopefully we're back for another season of great iRacing IndyCar Open action, because Monday nights never disappoint. And, well, RaceSpot, we love our American open wheel racing. It's fast, it's furious, and it's full of chaos. Phil Krause, the master of that chaos in 2024 Season 2. For our team behind the scenes that have made all of this possible, it's our Junior Kanki Party signing off for one final time. Oh, what a week we've got ahead of us.